Hmm. Oh, there we go. Hello, friends, enemies, mm, uh, who else? Kind mothers, demons, and angels. Well,
Leaves, flowers,
wow.
animals, peasants. What else can we put other clouds? Every individual raindrop and snowflake.
Life
Life in general. Well done, Jaro. Hi, Jaro.
itself.
So
How
let's.
was your week?
So far, Jaro, pretty good. It's been cold the last 2 or 3 days here in Canada, Toronto, Canada. But besides that, I've been inside most of the time, staying warm, going for walks once in a while with Judith and
Is there
nurturing two.
snow?
No, no, it hasn't. Well, it snowed just ever so lightly, but when it gets really cold, there's not room for snow at that point. The temperature's too cold for it. So it's kind of February weather, usually in this part of Canada.
That's life.
Yes, very much so. Parts of life, and also been nurturing two elderly cats, like you,
Mm.
like you nurture your elderly mother.
Mm. Wow,
Mm.
that's life.
How was your week, Jarrell?
Oh, my mother's back from the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
and she's looking swell. I saw her during breakfast the other day,
Mm-hmm.
and she wasn't she wasn't trembling. She stopped trembling, and
That's
she
good.
looked pretty awake and pretty sentient.
What was the reason for her trembling? Was her body cold, or was neurons in her head being affected? My
Yeah,
answer.
she usually when she's eating and picking up food on her spoon or knife, or
Mm-hmm.
it starts trembling.
Mm-hmm.
But, but that day she wasn't trembling, so uh, something happened in while she stayed in the hospital.
She probably was
Or
able to heal. She was probably able to heal. I know my aunt, she trembles a lot, and a lot of that has to do with their neurons. Um, some people being able to do certain kinds of healing, such as Reiki, to help calm it down a little bit. So there's a good chance maybe your mother's body was going through some sort of heat exchange. You know how it go hot and cold.
mm,
So the fact that you notice that, and she's going back to what you're used to, I'm happy for her and for you, obviously, and your family. Oh, there's a dog here. Don't tell me Dawn's bringing her dog today. Am I going to be communicating with her dog all day?
Yes, you
John.
will.
Oh, is that how the dog sounds?
She sounds like quiet. She's a quiet dog.
You ever have?
I was trying to do like Hyro. I'm in bed, and now he's up.
Look at you guys. My God, do I have to guys bring you your food too and all that? Like,
Oh,
food
yes,
on meals on wheels and delivered
yes,
to your
please.
door. And look at
Yes,
that. Look at it. See all the comforts we go with, Dawn.
I'm guilty. I want pancakes. I haven't had pancakes in like a year.
And why is that?
I don't know. I haven't cooked them.
Oh, you like to make them. Okay. I like to unfreeze them.
I want someone else to make them.
I have the luxury. Judith does them for me too, actually. She freezes them. So my job is just to take them out of the freezer and reheat them.
Oh my God, Judith, I'll pay you.
Hmm.
How's everybody doing? You had a good week?
Myself,
Yes,
yes. Jarrell?
yes, my mother is back from the hospital and home. She was in the hospital something like 6 days for COVID-19,
Hmm.
Wow.
and they wanted to keep her longer, but but we managed to convince the doctor and caseworker and everyone that she would do better at home, and we brought her home, and she's doing better than ever.
Hmm.
That's
She's not
wonderful.
she's not going trembling when she's eating her food. Or that's what I saw the morning that she was at home. She, like I said, wow, her hands aren't trembling.
Hmm.
Something got fixed. Something in the nervous system. Maybe some drug they gave her, or because she got three new drugs that she has to take every day.
Hmm.
Hmm, hmm,
Well, maybe there's a good chance, besides just the medicine or whatever she was taking, Jarrell, her body had a chance to recorrect itself or correct itself.
hmm.
Animals do it too sometimes, whether it's a dog or probably more of a cat. A lot of times we give medicine to it where it'll show you it just needs to eat some grass and just puke it out, and then go into like some sort of fast
Mm,
state, right? So
Maybe she burned something in the hospital from all that suffering.
maybe, yeah, that's a valid point. Yeah.
Burn or cleared it. Some negative uh some strange karma was cleaned out of her system. Something
It could
happened.
be. Your mother being 100 years old, who knows what ancestors or angels that she has surrounding her, right? So
Maybe it was my mantra that I recited on her head.
Could be. No, it could
Oh,
be.
home,
Yeah.
home, home,
Well,
home, 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 home. Oh, money pay me home. Oh,
mhm,
money pay me home. Oh, money pay me home. Saya taong bekanse, maha bekanse, kan saya samung kate soha.
mhm.
Saya taong bekanse, bekanse, saya samung kate soha.
There is value to when you come from her womb, so your energy would be in connection with her. You and then there's other examples where you see Tibetans, monks practicing whether it's singing bowls or Reiki over another person that has cancer. Not to say it works on everybody, but they've shown that it does aid in the process of shrinking cancer cells. So the fact that you did
Wow.
all those mantras, and only you would know, Jaro, your intent.
Wow. Oh,
I have to say, I agree because I remember growing up in, what did you have there?
Fisher, probably a
Monkey?
Tibet.
oh,
Yeah.
oh, oh. Oh,
What
oh,
Hindu? What Hindu is that, Jaro? Sorry, go ahead, Don, in a second.
oh, oh, isn't that scary?
For you,
No,
it is. For you, it is.
that's not scary. What is it? Is it a calendar or just images?
Probably
June.
printed.
Let's
Oh,
see
it
what
is a calendar.
June. June. Let's
Mm.
see. June. Listen, the year is
Is it
old.
2023 calendar, Ira?
It's an uh, it's an old calendar, but I
Oh,
like the pictures. Oh yes, it's 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 Yamantaka. Yamantaka. That means oh, Manjushri, the Bodhisattva of wisdom. Seen in this painting in the upper central position, can assume a wrathful emanation known as Yamantaka. Yamantaka. Yama Yama is the lord of death, and Taka Antaka means he's the conqueror of the lord of death, the conqueror of death. Oh, with this, with
funny the
this,
way you were saying it.
there are many forms and lineages for this deity. Yandok Mei Putri, one of the special forms, was transmitted initially with the Nyingma school, and around the 14th century it was adopted by the Drikum Kagyupas. This tanka, Tibetan painting, was
Mm.
created within this Kagyu lineage. Oh, the dark blue Yandok Meiputri stands on a red lotus, has three faces, six arms, and four legs. He carries various objects by which he can destroy enemies and the demons that produce obstacles. So with Yamantaka on my side, I can destroy my demons. Maybe they're in my mind. I can destroy my obstacles that keep me from my goals.
Interesting. Do you think that our modern day American, oh, well, I guess we have superheroes in other countries too. Do you think our superheroes today are supposed to be like similar to these guardians or gods of the past
Mm,
forces?
They've
yes,
written.
like say the movie Star Wars, or who was it that they came up with all those ideas? They 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 studied ancient mythology, and they just
Mm.
brought it in and created the characters from all these stories from different lands. Well, I think that's what I get from the series on the power of myth with Joseph Campbell and Bill Moyers. It is on PBS, and it's also in book form. They talk about the mythologies, the figures, and
Mm.
what and the themes or the plots are re are recycled in many cultures, repeated over and over, and they pull out great stories from them and put them on in Hollywood movies,
Yes.
like these action movies, or the what is it, the Marvel comic shows, movies. These action heroes, maybe they're deities or gods, goddesses
So,
from
so knowing that,
long ago.
Gerald, so knowing that, what do you think that feeds? Because it does feed something. I'm just wondering if you do get a sense of it.
Oh yes, when little kids watch those movies, then they go
Uh-uh.
outside and play and want to do those same things. They want to become those action
So,
heroes.
but what does it feed? Ponder what it
Identify
ponder what it feeds. Because a community that's
it.
actually well knitted
Oh,
together do not look at superheroes.
feeds imagination.
Feeds the ego.
Oh,
Because this is why the Hindus and all these different old mythology think about living in a small
Lord.
tribal community. Hear me out for a second, Charles, please. Think about living in a small community. You have people that are wise and wise men. They're just as strong as the next part. But what happens when you look at a superhero like, or even a supervillain, whether it's Batman and Robin, it's feeding the egos. It's like when you watch a movie, most people only see the main character. It's revealing how you lead and follow. Now, if you went to a tribal community and then you presented them to a single hero, they would actually be all one. They would not, and if they had they felt that they were a predator, they would attack it as one. If they thought it was a friend, they would actually hug it all as one. That's what all those myths actually encourages the ego. This is if you know thyself kind of ideal. So now I kind of make it humorous where I tell my buddies, I said, watch what the superhero and the villain are doing when they're going through Manhattan. They're feeding economics. They're both the bad guy and at the same time the good guy. Because tomorrow, the day after, I've always told my buddies all the time, I said, what does what does the prince and princess do the day after? See, people don't want to live the day after. They just want to be in that moment with their feelings. And more times than not, with their happy feelings opposed to all their feelings. So now when you look at an old Hindu god or in today's Superman, supervillains and all that kind of stuff, what is it feeding? It's kind of like, does it serve me or do I serve it? Now, I don't mind being entertained. And this is why where you have like different, heroes, Zeus and all these other characters, and then they give them a weapon. Here's my hammer. Okay. But what is it feeding? We all want to have these magical powers, which is fine. I think we all do in some ways or whatever. Gifts, they can even be curses, depending on what age you're in. But what do we do with them? And does the community want us to acknowledge it so we can incorporate it together? This is possibilities. I use the possibility of ego. I might have sounded like as though that's the only thing it feeds, but it feeds many things. But what is the ego again? It's kind of like having an app. It keeps absorbing. But what's the purpose of that app? In this case, the ego. We all want to be superheroes, but yet at the same time, we don't want to learn all the different thousands of languages. What are we really trying to feed? We want to be recognized. Yeah, I went on. Based on the picture that you just showed.
When you say feeding the ego,
yep.
That's interesting because there is a book
mm-hmm.
and a method, a meditation called feeding the demon or the gods or goddesses, because those are sub-egos. So Carl Jung studied this. He would call them our shadows, or things that we're taught to suppress, and don't let it come out. And then even it goes into our subconscious mind, and maybe our subconscious mind keeps working on it. Maybe when we go to sleep and in our dreams, and then, but in the daytime we keep it suppressed, and then suddenly it comes out when we don't want it to, and we get reprimanded, and maybe it causes us to have to do things that maybe when we drink and get drunk, it causes us those uh, our shadows to come out and cause crimes or things that we later regret. Hmm.
So knowing that, Jaro, because I get the Youngin, whatever. A lot of people usually bastardize it. What gives off a shadow? The darkness or the light? Ponder that, because we're talking about a mid part. You're looking at the shadow. That's not who you really are. But I get it. Most people don't want to acknowledge the shadow. Like when we walk and all of a sudden there's a sun behind you or in front of you. Do you really look at the shadow? The shadow comes from the light. But are
Yes,
you,
we can
but are
only see
you,
it in light.
yes, that's right. But are you the light, or are you in the light? Because we look at outside, for example, now, I don't know, we're all probably around the same time when it comes to the time zone. You see the flashlight in the sky, but that's not light. That's just the sun. Because you could have clouds all over that sun there, but you still see the light. They've shown pictures where the sun, the flashlight, is pointing through clouds and it leaves all these little spots. That's not the light. This is why when you have the yin and yang, the darkness and the light, my wife, Judith, had told me, she says, Dominic, because I was trying to look for a different word, he goes, day, night and day. So now, what is the shadow self? When most people struggle is because they don't want to reveal the shadows because they don't want to observe what they really are doing. They're attached to other things. They don't want to see the possibility, could you kill another human being? Well, I don't want to talk about that. Well, then how are you going to understand people that are in the military? How are you going to understand euthanasia? See, this is where we don't forget about respecting each other. We don't even respect concepts, ideals. We don't want to entertain that. Why? Because we're too busy being fed information opposed to bringing out information. The word information, maybe I'm bastardizing that, and maybe Dawn could correct me, hopefully, because she's very attuned to a lot of things. But I'm just playing with words. Go ahead, Jar. I see your hand waving up there.
So you, the shadow, the dark, the how about the parts of us that we don't want to investigate. The hmm what I was looking uh, through movies to play in my Roku, and I was seeing, these movies, that's a horror movie, I'll skip that. So
people do that, yeah.
So horror movies, so I don't want to watch horror movies. Why is that? Could it be because maybe I'll find something in me that could uh, come out and become a horrible person?
Jaro, you know what it
Maybe I
is,
have
Jaro?
horrible things that could erupt, horrible ideas.
Give me 1 second, Don, for a second there. Jaro, it's because we're not resisting horror, is we're attached to something else. So example, now I could give a child and say, listen, what's the attachment to horrors, comedy, Hallmark movies and all that? They're all made in the studio. So now once you see the interconnection, then you say, then why do I resist one opposed to the other one? No, it's not because you resist other things, because you're attached to the others. So you might, I'm guessing, you might be attached to something that's comical, something that has more documentary to it. It's we never look on the side that we don't want to see. It's because we're too busy being attached to things that we do want to see. That's what makes us blind. Oh, you're like Horseshack from Welcome Back, Carter. Your hands up in the air. Go ahead, Jaro. And sorry, Don, I know you were going to say something. My apologies.
I was gonna say Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like maybe it'll bring up my Mr. Hyde I want to hide Mr. Hyde. I'm afraid of myself. What were
Could
you
be.
Yeah,
gonna say? What were
some
you
would
gonna
say
say, Don?
in the past, people talk about the past where it reveals this similar scenario where it's a story that's talking about something else. They'll say it's an allegory. It's all of these different words confuse the main points, which is that yes, we have two sides of us, and the side that is hiding for a reason. I don't think it is always intentional because we've been programmed, but it can only be seen in the light. That's it. It's a shadow. Like you said, you cannot see a shadow in the dark. You can only see it in the light. So
Mm,
you have to awaken. You have to enlighten and be aware in order for you to recognize your dark. And it's difficult for some. A lot of us have that dissonance within us where we resist what is. I had it for many, many years and still do in some cases until I can recognize that shadow, what it is and how it's affecting me. And I do that because of my interactions with other people. Because my light is on now, I can see my reactions to other people, my shadows, my Dr. Hyde, so to speak. So I think it's very interesting. And then I was going to also say, I've really never been able to get down with these superhero movies. When I was younger, I had Christopher Reeves with Superman, but I have
mm,
such an inquisitive mind and I have questions. But of course, you're not allowed to question or ask anything. Just enjoy the movie. It's just a movie kind of thing. And I don't enjoy, I don't watch Marvel. I tried. I always know what's about to happen. It's just so
Predictable.
easy for me to
Predictable.
figure out what's going on. It's not enjoyable for me.
mm,
But they don't put in very much effort. It's just always sexually stimulated and overpower and over influence of power and force. And
mm,
it's always feeling like I'm being pushed to see things in a certain way. And it is
mm,
against what I am experiencing. And
mm,
so I liked what you were saying, Dom, about how back in the day, these tribes were unified.
Yes,
They
they
were
were.
unified with one intention. And when something came against it, they were unified in standing against it. And when something came to join, they unified themselves in welcoming it. It was something beyond a force and energy, beyond the mind that they operated in.
I don't know necessarily it's beyond the mind. You said something, Don, and maybe this will give you a chance to just ponder it. The light, when you see things with the light and in the shadow, that's your senses. You can see in the dark, but not what you call senses. This is kind of like afterthoughts opposed to in thoughts and before thoughts. The shadow is the mid ground. So now somebody will say, but I can't see the darkness. I said, not with your senses. This is where intuition comes from. But now you try to explain things externally with a language that's very cumbersome. Give me a second, Jaro. I see you in a second, Bello. So now goes back to the oneness. The tribal community will act as one, but they understand all the parts. They realize Dawn's the wise woman, Jaro's the worker, I might be the warrior, but we act as one. Listen to the word, we act as one. So now, when you become aware, the darkness is the essence to the light. Now, a person said, but I can't pick that up with my senses. That's why you're enlightenment. You've chosen not to remember where you came from. Now, does that mean that's where I came from the darkness? Well, the darkness could be very big. That's why the color black encompasses all colors. That's why the zero encompasses all numbers. That's just those are kind of like breadcrumbs on a trail, or they put markings on a tree to indicate to find your path. Not okay. Go ahead, Jar. Sorry. Go ahead, buddy.
I I heard in the beginning of your exposition or sharing something about un What did you? Oh, I missed the word. Was it understanding or something like that? Understand.
Well, that
Or was it?
understand usually indicates that you know where you stand. It's not about understanding others. It's about understanding yourself. Hence why we have the concept of tree of life. You've got them sitting on either side, wisdom and understanding. But most people are still struggling with participating in the realm called knowledge of spiritual material, which is fine. But it'd be nice to have discernment and also understanding, meaning knowing your place in it. This is why in biblical story, they talk about, because our forefathers chose to allow themselves to be deceived by taking the tree of knowledge. So they want to be like gods, not to be gods, but be like gods. You get to now play with the spiritual material realm, but there'll be this bright light, which is maybe some people might interpret as Lucifer, standing between knowledge and the tree of life now. Before, we were able to have the tree of life freely. If you chose to. Freely just means you have a choice. You can have it if you don't have it. Nobody should force you to have something. Then it wouldn't be freely. If I receive something freely, then I share freely. I'm not trying to make a buck off of anything that I share. But for a lot of people, they're not aware they're conditioning. Well, then why am I wanting to make a buck? Because that's your conditioning. Now, you weren't born to sell things to people. I'm not here to sell pleasantries to people. If I lived in a realm where everybody was kind, then I would actually purposely play another role. Why? Because I'm here to learn. I'm not here just to do the same old, same old. This is why people, go ahead, Gerald. I see your hand. I'm going to express your honor it.
So, what have we learned so far?
What have you heard so far?
What have we learned so far?
But I've changed the word. What have you heard so far?
Oh, what have I heard so far?
Mm-hmm.
I have heard that that Don doesn't find the Marvel movies uh, hmm, interesting because he knows where they're going, and it has to do maybe with power, and it's too much. He can, and maybe there's no mystery in it, or why is it? Why could it be? Is it something like what kind of people like those movies versus people that don't? Is it something in in their in their character?
Those particular movies, Jaro, is the concept of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, hoping for a different result. When you watch movies like the Marvels, if you go in there knowing that you want to be entertained, knowing that Marvel, Matrix, and all these things, there's going to be a war in it. It's the same result. No different. People watch porn or watch Hallmark movies. There's a similar result, and for most people, familiarity breeds contempt. But unfortunately, most people ignore that, but their body remembers it. This is why when people reach the age of 60, 70 years old, and they wonder, why do I have a disease? Well, it's not the food you're eating either. It's because you put yourself in an environment that's non-stimulating anymore. Now, when I say stimulating, lack of growth. Give me a second, Jaro. Lack of growth opposed to feeding the dopamine. But go ahead.
Or could it be that a person that doesn't like a certain kind of movie is because they've seen it so much that they know the plot, so it's boring to them? Or and so that means that the people that like them uh get so engrossed in it that they get into the characters and they forget about the plot. So they go back to watching those movies. They don't realize that they're all the same kind of plot, and so they're not in there for the plot. They're in there for becoming those characters. They kind of immerse themselves and want to see the happy ending. Come out feeling good.
Go ahead, Don.
Can I say something? I was going to say, I agree with you. I think that there are difference, but I would say the difference between the types of people that enjoy versus don't enjoy them is more has to do with the state of mind.
Mhm.
Just from my environment and my experience with people that I know, there's a immediate disconnection with them and their higher selves. For example, I
Mm,
have a friend who's also a screenwriter, very talented if he
wow.
wanted to be, but he it's hard to have a conversation with him about a movie because he is so attached to the process of creating the characters,
Mhm.
very much
Mm,
attached to it. And he gets so involved in that. And you're just trying to have a conversation about what the movie's saying and that sort of thing. But he's so attached to that part of it that it's hard to have a conversation. And he doesn't understand if you don't like the movie, how can you not like it? Because look at the character development they did. He's just so attached to it. But I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying it's interesting that I can see his perspective, but he cannot see mine.
Mhm.
And that I find that same thing exists with the others, where I'm looking for something with more nutrition for something else, not just my eyes to see and my mind to say, oh, I could be like this superhero, because I can't be like that person, that character. I cannot be. And those shows, those movies keep you bound to the ego and the
Mhm.
physical realm, and there's no room for lifting up out of it. And many of us, I remember being young, and so many of us, wanted to be like those characters. I loved He-Man. I wanted to be like He-Man. But
yeah.
I look back on those shows now, and I see that there is a different message underneath. And so I find myself not attracted to the ones who are really pushing the physical, egoic way of viewing the message.
Don, you're so grounded, huh? Well done. Where even when, okay, Jara, if you play this recording back, Don uses the word enjoy, you use the word likes. So now once you realize that, unless you're prepared to question where did you get the program of likes and dislikes. So now when a person watches a movie, a lot of times it's like talking to a criminal. They're not going to see the different pictures of saying, how is that harming humanity? They're so fixated with their persona. No different, try to talk to a parent and say, okay, but are you just the parent? And this is where people, they make it personal, and then they start getting into this perpetual defense and attack. Well, what about you, Dom? You're not a parent. I said, I'm just giving an inquiry. This is where people don't know subtly they've made a program feed its own program. And it's a constant loop where they're not questioning, why do I like watching movies? Because it's the easiest thing to do. It gets fed to me. But am I prepared to question it? It'd be like somebody that's a churchgoer trying to question somebody that's political. I said, they're caught up in their own engravement. How do I know that? Try to question yourself, let alone somebody questions you why you're religious. This is where people don't realize the ego, the program. It's not a bad thing. It's just been misplaced. It has an
Mm.
order. Go ahead, Charlie. I see you, buddy.
So Don, so when you say that you're able to see how or get the perspective of the screenwriter that is so attached to character development, like maybe having writing down the conversation that one character is having with the other, exchange, and but you're more interested in the overview, maybe the plot, and the screenwriter's more interested in the interaction and doesn't care about the plot. Is
Mhm.
that what you notice that a friend of yours has?
Not exactly, because actually I'm into the details as well. And I've actually, over many years, I did help him with his writing. I went through and edited and made some suggestions and that sort of thing. And so he is very much looking at the whole plot of the whole thing, the whole story. However, he gets caught up in, it feels very mechanical. Like, for example, you have to have a female that's hot and sexy, and there has to be a sexual attraction that's with a male lead as well. These are like the mechanics of screenwriting. These are the things you have to have. And so when trying to talk to him about how the story didn't have enough meat in it, like it was missing meat, it was just mechanical, the same story that you see everywhere all the time, he couldn't get it. He was like, yeah, but this is how you write a story. This is how you have to have these, or you will not be able to have a movie. It won't be successful. And I said, but can't you see that there's no meat here? There's no substance. It may be attractive to a certain group of people who always watch this kind of thing, but it will surely fail over a lengthy period of time because it's just the same thing over and over. So he can see the overall picture, but he could not get what I was saying, which is that he needed to be different, unique, have substance, in my opinion.
Well, Don, this is where I've had conversations with people, and they'll say, Dominic, sorry, Jaro, when money is the most important line, well, I'll find out in a short period of time if it's the only line. So you said something, and whether that's true about him and all that, it doesn't sell. So now this is where the artist becomes the salesperson, or they're so insecure getting into their craft that they're worrying about what other people think or don't think. So now, being an artist, you shouldn't worry about what other people think. Now, if most people go into the inquiry that I want to earn a lot of money and be famous, that's kind of like philosophizing with your likes and dislikes. Then you're no longer philosophizing. He's genuinely not being an artist. And that's why you say he's mechanical. He's being Lego set now. He might know how to write things and maybe pay somebody or get somebody to edit things, but he's genuinely not being an artist. Now, he could say, well, I am. I said, no. You can imitate an artist by cut and paste. Now, somebody could say, but is an artist somebody that's in a dark room? I said, no, the artist is the ones that actually seeing the world, going into a cave and start sketching it out. They got to learn how to actually use their chisel and hammer too. So now when you see somebody that's created a beautiful movie like Spielberg and all that, there's thousands of people that are participating in it, and most of them are just foot soldiers. Now, to be a true artist, you have to realize, how do I, as the eye of the beholder, try to duplicate that outside? Good luck with that. Now, for him, I don't think, Don, I think you're being kind. He doesn't see the big picture. He just sees small little aspects, and he calls it, or somebody calls it, the big picture. Dare not understand, how does film come to be? Because most of us we're using devices that were given to us, the pen and paper, high-tech camera. Some of them can be worth $10 million. I've seen them. They're interesting. But I'm more fascinated how they come to be. Forget about how you use them. Because I could look at a car and a motorcycle and say the same thing. So now he can't step far enough away because he thinks he is that person. Oh, look at me. I'm also a guy that does jingles for music. I said, but did you create music? This is the whole ideal of looking at Michael Jordan and saying, but did Michael Jordan invent the game? No. Did he invent his opponent? No. Did he invent himself? No. So then who is he? Know your place. You're just simple human being having an experience. Now, along the way, you might be something, electrician, a computer programmer, an accountant, all that. But we didn't create any of those industries at all. And we're not the one that's going to maintain it. To a point, old languages have disappeared. Old kinds of craft have disappeared. You don't think for some reason when they start actually doing digital and all that, we're going to lose accountants? Sure you are. Because you're not going to need it anymore. What is the whole purpose of an accountant? To keep track of numbers. Whose numbers? The fiat currency numbers. That's all that is. Don, you probably are aware of that, but most people, they're not going to see that. Well, Dominic, how does that serve me? I said, now you're just talking about you. See, I don't mind talking about me, but when it comes to considering the human race, it takes a special ability to get to that point where you have to know the discernment. When is it about me and when is it about others? Now, I'm using my imagination when I hear about poverty, where most people say, but Dom, they're talking about it. Who's feeding you the information? Poverty could be a person that has weak mind. I know. See the hand flinging. Go ahead, Gyro, buddy.
I love it. I love it.
Discernment.
Mhm.
Oh, that's an interesting word that you use.
Yeah, wisdom,
You're
discernment.
you're giving it specialness to it, power to it, that we something that we should strive for, that we don't use enough. We lack discernment.
What gets in the way?
So
What gets in the way of
how
discernment?
can I improve my skill in discerning, my discernment capabilities?
So now you have to get something out of the way. What's getting in the way? Think about the ego. The ego, you know, when a person's using their ego when they do right and wrong, that's a judgment. That's not discernment. Because I could have a moment where somebody might classify it as right, but I'm going to have a discernment. Why is it right this time, but not right another time? That's discernment. This is why the child is always being held by the mother. Depictuation. That's feminine holding knowledge, wisdom holding knowledge. Knowledge is to know. So somebody can say, I could judge something. Okay, so who told you it's right or wrong to jump off a cliff? Well, Dominic, if you jump off a cliff, you'll die. Whoever told you you're going to die? What do you mean? If one person survives, that nullifies 100% of people are going to die. Now, for most people, they want to be the 1%, but they're not in that scenario. So this is where we've been programmed the whole, and we use the word very harsh, fucking time. But do we question it? Sorry, do we question it? We're allowed to question it. But if you're questioning it with judgment opposed to discernment, why do it? Because you've already categorized things like right and wrong, up and down. Go ahead, Jar.
I have had an epiphany.
Sure.
A waking up. I have woken up. I'm woke. No, I wake up and I think clearly now. I get it. So
Please share.
I've learned something from Dominic.
Hope not. Hope you learned it from yourself.
Okay, I learned it
from hearing
by
me?
myself, from hearing Dominic, from listening, and it finally dawned on me. Dawned on me.
See, there you go.
It finally dawned on me. So what Dominic is trying to say is there's discernment and there's judgment. Yep. And so judgment, it's got its claws on discernment. So that's what's holding me.
It doesn't.
And so I have to let go of that judgment, that ego, and now discernment can flower. Isn't that a good metaphor?
Judgment always comes with an attachment to an outcome. It always comes with a expectation. And I remembered at one point someone was trying to help me to understand this, but I was so asleep. I was snoring. I couldn't even understand it. They were saying, don't predetermine the outcome. Don't set unrealistic expectations. And for me, being very intellectual, I said, there's nothing wrong with planning how you want things to go. You plan so that you can be successful. But the person was talking about something more subtle that I was not yet ready to understand. And when I was ready, I was ready to realize that by predetermining that I want things to be this particular way or have this outcome, when it didn't, it would throw me into a loop, and I was resisting what is and fighting against it. It caused so much dissonance within me because I was attached to this particular way of thinking. I did not have discernment to understand that I cannot control things that are outside of me. And so therefore I had to keep myself open to see what is really going on so that I can make a decision in the moment, have wisdom, not just knowledge, I think is the point.
And on that too, John, where judgment plays in, the word attachments and resistance, more of that, less of that. That's attachments. Basically, I want more of that. And resistance, I want less of that. That's what that does, opposed to how do we not know that each of those different outfits work in different moments? So what somebody would depictuate as right in one moment. If you go to England, you do 4 of them, you've done a roundabout, where I use the word right and left opposed to right and wrong. It's a pious position to think that it's right to be a master and to convince somebody else it's wrong to what, be a slave, let alone right to be a slave. That's a pious position, opposed to, yes, there is moments where I do follow myself as a master and as a slave. If we're going to use those analogy of slave and master, opposed to leading and following. That should be done within each individual being. Now, most people are caught up in the human part, which is, I'm an animal. Well, I don't want to be classified as an animal. Well, then why use the word human then? Because it does, in some languages, means animal or beast. Now, once we realize that, how can we relate with other animals and beasts? Well, they have feelings. Okay, but are my feelings developed enough that I can sit in it long enough and not feel as though I need to do anything? This is where people will come to me without even me asking me and give me a hug. I said, shouldn't I have a say in the matter? Well, what do you mean? I said, but I'm giving you a hug. I said, give me a second, Cheryl. I'm going to finish this up. I have to it's like no different somebody coming to me with a gun. I said, who told you that you can violate me? Now, what I could do is maybe speak if I feel as though that person can reason. If not, I'm fleeing, because I realize they're going to be doing more harm to themselves than to me. Now, they might turn around and say, they're going to kill you. I said, they don't got a clue how the realm really works. They got to live with that shit. I don't give a shit if they're a psychopath, because you could tell a psychopath and said, then why are you overweight? Why are you over drinking? Why? Go ahead, Jara. I'm keeping quiet now. Go ahead, buddy.
Thank you, Dominic. It's starting to click. Okay, so when so we tend, thanks to Adam and Eve eating from the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, in this case, so good as in right and wrong. So we must, no, we don't have to, but if we look at it as instead of right and wrong, good and evil, spiritual material, we should change our perspective and look at it as right and left. Mm-hmm. That way the judgment is eliminated. We are detached from judgment, from ego, and we can see a level playing field, equanimity, equipose, peace. And so we can go right, and then maybe we can go left, and maybe we can get lost, and it'll be okay, because we got GPS. We can find ourselves. See, we can go drive around a new neighborhood and say, okay, I'm going to go right and then left, and then right and then left at each corner, and see what happens, where I end up, and explore new civilization, new world. I'll go, okay, I'm going to stop at a stop sign, and okay, now it's time to go right. Okay, then I go to the next stop sign, and oh no, okay, I went right last time. Now I'm going to go left. And say, go beep, and then I say, oh gosh, where am I? I'm lost. This is so new. All I have to do is get my phone and select home, and I can find my way back. Isn't that wonderful? And we learn something new.
Can I intercede for a second, Gerald? When I use the word right and left, I'm talking about what we call the hemispheres, a king and queen. So now that analogy or metaphor that you use, you come to a stop sign. Why did you stop? Because you know your place with your ego. Hear me out, please. Please let me share this one, Gerald, because I know other people are going to hear this because it's recording. If it wasn't recording, I'd be having a private conversation with you and I would intercede differently. So when you come to a stop sign, to a light, you are using judgment. Mm. Now, if you go to another country and they remove the word stop, you would realize behind the scene has always been discernment. You'll still know the difference. We're always judging. It's just that the ego doesn't know its place. When an ego, I'll call it the child, is running the family, it's gone array. You have to be the example for it. So now you make room or at least you become aware of discernment. That's the ever tendering feminine part, where it's in the unknown. This is why even in the teaching of what you call Muslims, the woman runs the household. She does it privately and she gets rewarded publicly. The man has to, or in this case, the masculine part, the action part, has to be the one that's doing the action part. That's where karma comes in. So now, in this particular case, when I talk about right and left, this is where we get the concept of king and queen. You have a logic side of your brain, you have the artistic side of the brain. They have to work together, because if not, and I don't care if you think that judgment is going to justify by saying one's wrong and one's right, the heart, which is the gesture, now has to come out privately and say, you guys are acting like idiots. And I'm not talking about other people. I'm talking about your own kingdom within yourself. Now, if all of a sudden now you don't listen to the heart, now you have to deal with your insight, your intuition. Now you're going to go to all the other receivers, because the mind communicates with the brain first. So kind of the metaphor, the prophet is the brain for the community, but the mind could be, we'll just say the demigods, and it's communicating. But if something's been not aligned, this is why you have the lower triangle communicating with the upper triangle, then it becomes that where it becomes joined together, and that's why you have those kind of objects. The Jews ever so lightly tap on this stuff, whatever, but most people don't even know why they're called Jews. They're too busy, just like Don was talking about, an acquaintance that basically is in an industry. He doesn't know all the parts, but yet we arrogantly say, well, I see the big part. I said, I just described some of the parts, and you're like scratching your head. So, well, Dominic, I don't understand. I said, that's why I know you're misleading yourself. Why? Because you're not here to understand another person. You're here to understand you. Once the understanding, think about the word understand in the tree of life. What are they standing under? You have to inquire about that stuff. Same with wisdom. Wisdom and understanding just play parts. Now, you're using the metaphor of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. If you understand the language, you'll understand metaphorically or spiritually, energetically. It just means spiritual material. You live in an evil world. You live in a material world. How do you describe all those things, such as the word hand or tree, which is the spiritual? I mean, it's the unknown. You don't know where that stuff is. Now, we like to classify things. Well, then I'm a spirit. You could be. I'm a God. You could be. But for the ego to say that out loud, I know it's the ego that's talking. That's self-gratification. Look at me. I wrote a book and I have to write down on it PhD. You didn't create being a physician. That's what PhD means. But who are you a physician for? The healer? For the outside world or for you? This is where people don't realize you come here, whatever words I'm even bastering the words, we come down here. Who am I and who's we? Now, I'm okay with probing that. Where other people, no, Dom, I have no regrets. Yeah, a sociopath would say that kind of shit. You don't regret the fact that you're underweight, you're overweight, you're obese when it comes to financial and all that kind of stuff. I see the hand again. Go ahead, buddy.
So I am trying to understand, where am I standing under? So let's meditate on that. I'm standing under the ceiling, standing under a guitar.
Standing under your beliefs. You're standing under your construct from your mind, your ideas, your beliefs, your positions,
Programming.
your programming. Yes, that's what we all stand under. And it can enhance us or it can reduce us, in my opinion, prevent us from experiencing this life, from connecting with others, from realizing who we really are. But to be honest with you, I find myself always coming back to, is it a problem? Is it a problem that I fell asleep? Like yesterday, I had a rough start to my day. I was in a bad attitude. In other words, I wasn't in for any nonsense. So when nonsense came, I was more aggressive with it than I probably should have been. But I don't feel guilty about that. I used to pile on a whole bunch of guilt and shame on myself. But in reality, I find that I became aware of my attitude once I displayed it. And then I was able to bring it back in, figure out what it was that was irritating me, and release it. But yeah, I'm 50 years old now, but wow, years ago, 30 years ago, forget about it. I didn't know what the heck was going on. I just, I suppressed, like you said, Jairo, I suppressed any of those feelings and I tried to skip along and everything is great and roses and lollipops and rainbows, which was ridiculous.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. Oh, you know what the topic is? The topic for today is life. That's life. Why? Oh, and that reminds me of existence versus non-existent. Mm, and real. I heard from a master on my audio app. It was pretty interesting. He was having a conversation with a student. It was a student master and exchange. And I said, wow, he just said something interesting. I don't understand it yet, but it sounds like it's probably true that that what exists. Hmm. So so no we exist. No, how can I say it? Maybe he said something to the effect of because we or something exists, uh, we're not real. But what it doesn't exist is real. Something to the effect. So when I apply it to does God exist? And then we could say no, and then God is real because it doesn't exist, because what exists is not real. Mm, mm,
I think it has to do with the use of the word exists and the meaning that we give it, because
mm,
everything has its meaning because we give it to them. So last night I joined the Socrates Cafe um,
mm,
me Zoom, and there was an interesting topic, and um, the one fellow had an issue with the word philosopher. He in philosophy, he says, I alluded to us all being philosophers. And he said, silly Dawn, I'm not a philosopher. I'm not a person that does this. And he named off a whole bunch of characteristics. And I found it interesting that he could not perceive or really understand that that was his way of viewing the word philosopher and what it meant. It didn't match mine at all. And so that's what I said to him, was that that's you gave it that meaning. And so that's what it means to you. So if something exists and we collectively decide that existence means something physical, then yes, I would agree with you that God does not exist in this physical realm. But then it's confused with the word real, because for some people, what is real is what is existing. It's a conundrum.
Oh, so maybe uh, what exists is is what we conceptualize. Okay, this exists. So I use my mind and intellect to conceptualize, and maybe my senses. Oh, this exists, but God is so beyond conceptualization that we can't find God and make it and have it say, "Oh yes, there is God. It exists." So we can't say it exists, but then we can say it's real because when a mystic has some experience and then says, "I have experienced God," or talked to him, or communicated with him, or had it, or just the experience is supernatural, then it's real for that person. So it's real, but then you can't pin it down. You can't scientifically say, "There it is," or "That's what that was." You can
And for
maybe
me, what's real
infer.
is what I experience. So it's very
Mm-hmm.
difficult. Words truly do get in the way. I was going to say, when you were talking about the master and mystic with respect to life, I was going to pose a question for us. And it is my perception has been that humans love to worship someone or something. And I'm just wondering why that is. Is it a program within us? Because we have masters and gurus and all of these things. And what I have witnessed is that people always end up angry and disappointed and ashamed of these leaders for failing them. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because they are human and they have human characteristics. But in our minds, we set an expectation that, hey, if you are a master, a guru, a god, so to speak, then you have to behave in these ways that we don't behave. We have never achieved that status, so we don't know what it's like being in these titles that we've given each other. But I'm just wondering, what the heck is it about? And why do we do it? And what's your opinion?
Oh, if I can share, Don, you're using the word worship, right? So now,
Yes.
because we're using the English language, worship has many meanings to it, and one of them means work for. So when you worship something, it's not like you're giving a knee, you're working for money. You're worshiping money. That's all it means. There's no ego into this. See, the ego is limited to understanding the language it's using and all its meanings. So it's like when I heard Jarrell talking earlier about a guy talking about essence and then talk about the word real. So now we have to break down the word real. For most people, what real means is material. So now somebody could say energy in motion. Okay, so now somebody says, well, Dominic, I do see my hand moving. I said, but it's also air energy in motion. Yes, but can you see it? No. So now, unless you're aware of beyond your senses, you're going to be very limited and you're going to do nothing more than to defend it. So now, essence could literally mean a rock exists, but does it move? It still exist. Now, if we're going to play trick games with ourselves, but it doesn't move. I said, okay, so my hand, it's numb now. Is it still energy in motion? So now you went on to another topic where you're talking earlier about if I can't experience it. You experience everything on a material on a very linear scale. You experience thoughts way more than you do the linear. And I'll give you the example. You could look at an object and you can call it a fridge. The object is still there. You call it a fridge. That's another experience. Then you can actually say it's a white fridge. There's two things that you've used to combine onto the one thing. You can call it a white fridge made by Maytag. Do you see how all the words you're using are experiences? We experience way more in our emotions than we do actually what people call the material part. but it's still, we still have to gauge, give me a second, Gyro. We still have to gauge how things work. We see a lot of its side effects. We don't see air, but we see it moving leaves. We're assuming it's air because we give it a name. Then we have to question, then why do other people call it prana or call it chi? Because you can use many words to describe the same thing, but what's the essence to things? So now when somebody talks about we just exist, because they're under the premise they think they know what life is. Back to what Jaro was talking about. A lot of times what life is, it's the absence of death. And what's death? The absence of life. But can they coexist? Yes. Are they one? I don't know. Anyway, go ahead, Jaro.
Yeah. Thank you, Don, for posing that concern. And it struck me also because one time I recall when I'm looking back, I see, oh yes, that spiritual teacher. Should I follow him? Because I searched the internet and I found some dirty laundry. And oh my gosh. But I tried to overcome and went ahead and went to see him and sit by his feet and tried to listen. And he would expound on wonderful stories about this king of India and how, with his faith in God, he was able to do this and that miraculously. And I say, wow, what a wonderful story. So I tried to overcome my fear that this spiritual master was evil, because I went on the internet and found out that he was involved in this or that, and it was all rumors. So I overcame my fear of, oh, this master must be saintly for me to follow him. So I overcame that and went on to listen to.
But Jaro, question now, if you want to go inwards, what did you feed the whole fucking time? Your ego. That whole time, the fact that you call him a spiritual leader, he's a guru, that's your ego. Now, if you truly understood that what people call a guru could be a light, but then you're allowed to question it within yourself. You don't have to question them because your teacher's within. That other guy outside there, he's evil. He's material. Now, somebody could say, Dom, you're playing with words. I said, aren't we all? Where do we get the ideal of the ego, the self, the I am? Question that, not question me. I didn't create any of those words. Now, dare not somebody say, well, Dominic, I'm a guru. I said, did you create me? Well, no. Did you create yourself? No. So what fucking shit are you peddling? Now, I say it in a way that they say, well, Dominic, I said, well, then you're not true to yourself. Because if you're full of shit, you should be okay with me just calling you out on it. I see the hand again. Go ahead, buddy.
And even when I explore doctrines or sayings, or go on YouTube and find discourses of certain people, and I listen to them objectively, trying to put aside what stories, personal stories that came along with it, and I say, oh wow, yes, that makes sense what he's saying. Yes, yes, I would like to be able to do this and that. Yes, it sounds wonderful. Yes, if we could do this, maybe the world would be better. And then but then I say, oh, but that person is got this dirty laundry, is evil, so maybe I shouldn't follow him. But yes, look, what he's saying makes sense. But this person is some people say he's a cult leader, and look, and what this person, even when you look at what that person that started that Jones town, and when you just objectively listen to what he's saying, he said, wow, yes, and he's for the poor, and he wants to bring them up. But then look what he did, the cult leader, and had everyone drink from the Kool-Aid, and they all died. How horrible. but they all went to heaven. No, anyway.
So
Yes,
Jaro,
that's very interesting. That that
you said, hmm,
yes, it's very interesting that the messenger, the message. Maybe what we have to look at is discern the message and ignore the messenger. Don't say that because the messenger is human and has faulty that we should dump the 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 bathwater with the baby. We should seek the baby, the pearl, the gem, and forget about the bathwater.
Well,
you,
sometimes the message is corrupted by the messenger. So then
Oh,
that
that's
goes back
true
to
too.
discernment.
Oh, okay,
Mhm.
yes, that's possible too. We have
well,
to be
Jaro, you
careful.
said it a couple of times, and I've kind of mentioned it before. Unless you question your senses, because your senses can easily be misled. So now you're saying things such as he could have some dirty laundry. Well, Jaro, you honestly think you're above reproach? You don't think you have dirty laundry? We all do. Now, I don't have to find out for sure, but the thing is, why are you trying to follow them? You see, weak-minded people get their due rewards. Now, you work for a company, you do program and all that. How do you not know you're not in a cult following IBM or Apple or following fiat currency? You're just taking a small example. It's like somebody telling me, Dominic, I was molested when I was a child. I said, I'm sorry to hear that from everybody involved. But let me ask you a question. What did you have for breakfast? Well, I don't remember. What did you have for lunch that day? I don't remember. But you'll remember a moment in time. So now in that particular case, the fact that you went looking for him or reading his fucking shit or hearing his shit, giving him a knee tells a lot more about you than them. Now, if you think that you live outside of your vessel, then explain yourself. When you look across the room, are you there? You're still there. You're still inside of you. So when you have to seek from within, it's because that's all you ever have. Now, unless you're one of the rare characters that are astral traveling or they're downloading, that's different. Now, they're rare in numbers, no different like me and Don and you. We probably can't run like certain athletes of the world, regardless of how much training we do, let alone be the rare deep sea diver that can go underwater for 5 minutes. This is where the ego doesn't know its fucking place. And until you realize that, because I could easily show you something of a dolphin jumping out of a forest, that means your senses could be misled. And what's the one that's reading all those books? Your fucking senses. But are you those things? Go ahead, Bello.
Done. So when you were at the Zoom meeting and you said, uh, or that you proclaimed that we are all philosophers, and then someone said, no, wait a minute, we cannot be philosophers because a philosopher has to be this and that, and is able to do this and that, and you just says, oh, okay, well, that's your definition of a philosopher, but mine is lover of wisdom or something like that. What is your definition of philosopher, Don? May I ask?
A person who sees the pattern of the past. In other words, they can absorb the knowledge of what's happened in the past and be able to see its relationship to our lives today. That to me is a
Oh,
philosopher. As a matter of fact, I was not
I
asked
like that.
last night what my definition was. I didn't have one prepared, but just now it flowed out of me. So it is exactly what it is for each person. And I don't put any shoes on it. I don't put any makeup on it. I don't dress it up with any characteristics because I
Mm,
believe that we all have our own meanings attached to different words based on our experience. So,
mm. Oh, okay. I like that. I was watching the movie this morning, the beginning of it, the Bible, and it starts off with Noah's Ark, and then Noah is inside the ark with the animals and his family, and while the the boat is moving and they're getting wet inside, he's trying to tell his kids and family by rote memorization, because back then they didn't write anything, so he was telling this story. In the beginning, Elohim, maybe I'm guessing. Oh no, Yahweh or whatever. No, I wonder what they use for God, because if it's Elohim, then that would mean gods. So in the beginning, the gods created the heavens and the earth. So I'm thinking, oh, maybe the gods were aliens. So we came from another planet, and then the aliens, okay, let's move the earth a little bit farther away because it's too hot because of the sun. Oh no, not that far, because if we put it farther away from the sun, then it'll be too cold, so you can't have life. And then, okay, now let's put the life on there. So in the first day, the gods put the plants. And no, he cleared up and had the waters recede, and now we can put some plants and animals. And the second day, look, it's fine. Anyway, and then the movie goes on to Abraham, or Abram, and Abram gets communication from that God. Maybe it's Yahweh. Maybe it's an alien Yahweh. Oh, that's my imagination. And then he gets, okay, now I want to send you out from uh, Baghdad, Iraq area, and go to a place I want you to start, and you'll have kids, and it'll populate the world, have as many kids as there are stars in the sky. Well, not that many, but maybe as many as you can see. Well, that's a lot. Anyway, and that was an interesting movie. So that goes back to mythology, but also, that the past. So so Don is saying that we are all philosophers, maybe, because we're always trying to look at the past, and it informed the present, and for make us better able to handle the future. Something like that. Hmm. uh, oh, okay. Uh, mm, a plug for Dominic. Let's see. Dominic is going to be hosting a Zoom uh, tomorrow, Sunday at 10 a.m. And the Zoom link is 951-684-3990. And the password is, oh, coincidentally, 3990.
Okay, cool.
Mm,
I
all right.
yeah, last night I
Mm, I don't know
was
if I can show.
interested
I'll
in
try.
I
Mm,
was interested in about how, from my perspective, the philosophers that our societies have been given seem to be hand chosen by certain groups of people.
Mm.
And the way that they have been given to us seems to be that they have been exalted to an elevated status, where only certain people can really glean what they are saying. You have to be of a certain level of intellect. And they really, in my opinion, manipulated the message so
Mm.
that it's been out of the reach of the masses for the most part. And further have the majority of the people been sucked down in deeper into this sleep, I would say. But what I've realized is that many philosophers were categorized as spirituality. And so, and so when I compared what we were told philosophers are, at their message to the spirituality message, it's the same damn thing underneath. And then they're just dressed up with different words. And so for me, we are philosophers because look at us, we are comparing and trying to understand a deeper meaning and sloughing off that which does not fit so that we can come to what we truly are. And that to me makes you a philosopher. It's not standing up in robes and getting your picture painted and being in a book or any of that. It has nothing to do with it.
I think, Don, there's Q signs that give away a philosopher, let alone a mystic. There's a big difference between the characters. Some of them are, think about kids at the age of 2. Not all kids do this, but kids at the age of 2 ask a lot of questions like why. A lot of the old priests of old were the ones that were asking a lot of whys. So now the mystic is the guy that, or her, they don't have to read books or hear things. They just intuitively pick it up, or insightful. So now these people that play the part of a philosopher, and then you can figure them out quite quickly, they're playing a part. They start saying, well, Socrates. I said, that's not philosophizing. Philosophy is discernment why you want to inquire about how things come to be. Same with when a person talks about all the hows. They're being very scientific now. So most of those guys, Don, when they say, I don't philosophize, they're going in there, they're not even intellectualizing. What they're doing is they're having a point of view and they're trying to convince others their view opposed to sharing their views. Now, to try to explain that to them, good luck. Because more times than not, they're looking for the concept of debating an argument. They're not ever go inwards and say, can I really argue and debate Dawn with her senses? No, I can't. So what can I do? I can only share my own personal experience. Now, if there's something beyond the senses, then I'm sharing with you. So you're not going to.
Go ahead. Finish
No,
what you.
no, there's never a finish. No, go ahead, buddy.
Finish your train of thought.
I don't have a train of thought, Jaro. But go ahead. Go ahead.
Or your point before I start my point. And that inspired me. What Don said and what Dominic was saying, that yes, about philosophy. Yes, it's like the other day I was listening or hearing, and something about that, and yes, it, it's so yes, philosophy, like Don was saying, would be let's see. Don was saying that you look at what works for you, but then when you read about or hear about philosophy, it sounds like it's just not your personal philosophy. There were actually thinkers way back that influenced this civilization, and so and the word philosophy, at one time it was used for everything that you went to study in college, and you ended up getting a degree in philosophy, and that's all they had, because there wasn't any specialization going on. You just went to college and ended up with a degree in philosophy. The PhD, the PH means philosophy, and the D just means doctorate. That just I guess that you've gotten it. You got the highest level in philosophy, and so they so they got training in maybe in how to think, and maybe they used learning Greek language, because then like Dominic says, it's a comprehensive language, so you could comprehend things. And maybe they had to learn Latin, because they had a lot of information from the Greeks through Latin. And then maybe you had to learn Hebrew, because the Bible, you have that information to consider. And so they just learned that, and you say, wow, all these great thinkers, inventors, like scientists, oh, that's all they studied in college, and then they go on and discover things, and they, wow, and they say, and then so it seems like what I get is that all these sciences come from philosophy, and they get separated into their own fields, so that the students that go study that, they just get everything that's known about that field, and then when they graduate, then they've gotten programmed and everything you're supposed to know about that field. Oh, so maybe we're just all philosophers, but when we get specialized, um, we don't have to think anymore. We just gotta do it. Go graduate and then work at a place that it doesn't require thinking. You just do it like a cog in a wheel in a machine. Ah, what do you think, Don? Hmm.
Wow, that's a lot. um, but yeah, I feel like we humans, in our desire to understand what's going on here, we
Hmm.
try to make a rule, make up a prescription,
Hmm.
a um, a design of what we are and what we're supposed to be doing. And that's why we end up with these rules that everybody has to follow. I was just
Hmm.
recently having a conversation with someone about these mukbangs that they have online, where you get to watch people eating gobs, of food. And there is a huge discussion about why is it that there are some people who eat a bunch of food and they're thin, and for other people it's not that way. And what I've experienced in my life is that everybody is different. Every perception is different. And if you don't believe that this food will make you gain weight, I mean, truly believe that. Not that you're saying the word. I don't believe it. I went to Weight Watchers and I don't believe that food will make me gain weight. That's not it. It is something that is imprinted in within you, and you don't believe that. What I have seen is that food doesn't affect you that way. And so people who don't understand it in the way that I do seem to have a reason. It's always a nefarious reason. They're thin because they're throwing up after they eat. That's the only way. But we can't all fit into this one mold that our societies keep trying to force us into. And so we have to let ourselves be free and flow out of that. And a philosopher realizes that, because to me, it's very basic. That's one of the most basic steps of coming to realize what's going on in this world is realizing that we don't fit into any of those molds that they've been trying to push us into. So I feel like the more we wake up and ask the important questions, let go of the stories we get attached to. I don't think there's anything wrong with reading and enjoying movies, but to make it become who you are and try to be these characters that are not real, back to that word real, causes us to fall deeper into the sleep. And it doesn't bring us very much benefit collectively. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Mhm. And Dominic was saying in the chat, uh, he came up with from what he was hearing from Don and me. He says, "What is an example? No, philosophy, love or wisdom, discernment, work or serve. It's consider what we're here for: to work or to serve. What does indoctrination mean? In simple terms, to teach someone to fully accept the ideas, opinions, and beliefs of a particular group and not to consider other ideas, opinions, and beliefs." Oh, that reminds me of like when you go to college and study to be this or that, then you get focused on knowing the ideas, opinions, and beliefs of the particular career field and not consider others, although there's a lot of overlap. What is an example of indoctrination? hiding facts, disparaging student opinions, or rejecting any ideas that contradict the teacher's beliefs are examples of indoctrination. Indoctrination is a means of forcing, brainwashing, or imposing desired ideologies without open discussion.
Yes. And who's best to teach
Love
that?
of wisdom.
Mhm.
And what is love of wisdom? Quite literally, the term
Gerald?
philosophy means love of wisdom. In a broad sense, philosophy is an activity people undertake when they seek to understand fundamental truths about themselves, their world in which they live, and their relationship to the world and to each other.
Can I share something, Gerald?
Existing.
Gerald, I
Uh,
kind of I shared that
okay.
private. I shared that privately for the two people that's in this group. If I wanted to speak it openly, I would have. And they're not
Oh,
mine. So hear me out, please. A lot of times
it's
in
just
doctor,
something to consider.
for you, yes. I think you're going to have to learn the wonderful world of private opposed to public, Jaro. Some things are
Oh,
privately consumption, some things are public. If I
oh,
wanted, because I
so
know
I
you're
should read it
recording it for yourself, sure.
for
You know,
myself.
that's how you consider and respect others. You know, if I
Oh,
truly,
that was for me and
Jaro,
not to
Jaro,
everyone.
no, I put it in the chat because Jaro, I think somewhere you've lost your boundaries with yourself. I hope you really
Oh,
want to look
I
back at
should
this.
I
No.
shouldn't have read
You're
this
doing it
out.
now. You're still doing it. So please hear me out, please.
So let me read it
Jaro.
in silence.
Okay, well, you don't have to say it. I get it. Maybe your skill set's a little bit different than most characters. So because you're recording this and other people will hear it, I'm going to yap. So now, indoctrination, how does it work best when the teacher's been indoctrinated? Now, if you're the kind of person that truly grasps the concept of free will, receptive will, and all that, you'll realize indoctrination is your limitations. Now, what are some forms of indoctrination? Well, you learn how to read and write. That's an indoctrination. You learn different variation of language. If you truly had free will, you should be able to speak Sanskrit fluently right now if you wanted to, and you've never learned the language. So a lot of it has to do with learning a craft. So now when people talk about philosophy, they like to use the word, but they really don't have discernment, hence wisdom. So now if somebody told you, is it right or wrong to cross the street? You would have to have discernment. Depends on the situation I'm in. Would I pick up a gun to harm another person? It all depends what the situation I'm in. Now, if somebody's already prejudged it and said, well, it's wrong to kill another person, then another person that's using discernment, well, then how do we depictuate people that are killing other people in military? This is where one goes within themselves, even with yourself. You're asking questions, I've shared with you before, but you're really not listening to yourself from within. Hence the word meditation, to listen from within. But if you don't go into a state of silence, which is peace or prayer, inquire, who are you really listening to? You're listening to the chatter of the ego that doesn't know how to put things together. Now, some people are born under certain signs. So you're born under the Virgo sign. So you'll have an analytical sign, but you're also nitpicking. That's part of a trait of a Virgo. Now, people say, well, Dominic, I don't really care about signs. I said, well, then how would you think people used to know when to plant their seeds? Based on science. That's what the sun and the moon is. And there's even a solar system even beyond that called the Sirius. They use a different kind of calendar. It's a 10-day calendar opposed to our Georgian calendar, which is a 7-day calendar. Now, you might think, well, Dominic, how does that work? Well, how do you think people have discernment to create the technology that we're using? It's beyond the scope of us. Now, you could turn around, I'm just using you as an example, Jarl, and said, Dominic, I know how to program. I said, not if somebody doesn't give you the computer, let alone all the know-how. That's where the ego has to learn to humble itself, know its place. You're not above reproach. You're not above accomplishments. You're just another human being like the rest of us. Now, I'm overgeneralizing here, but you might have a gift, but that can also be a curse if you're living with a whole bunch of people that are ignoring their own personal gifts, let alone appreciating somebody else's gift. Putting up your hand was neat and comfortable at the beginning, but after a while, I've kind of shared with you before, you'd be one of the students that a monk would have to slap you in the back of the head, not for their attention, for your own attention. Because you're asking a lot of questions, even what you're doing now. You're reading out loud. I shared that because couldn't get edgewise into you. Now, I know I go on rants and all that, but I'm hoping that other people know how to piece things together. If not, goes back to Don uses an example. She's talking to a character and he said, Dominic or Don, whoever, I don't philosophize. when Don's giving him a possibility, I think we all do in some moments. We do ask questions why. But how many people do ask each other, why do you do that? Let alone ask themselves, why do I do what I do? Why don't I just go to work? Or you hear people say things like, I have no choice. No, you have a choice to say you have no choice. It's like when people say they're insecure, but you're secure enough to say you're insecure. Dare not ever get to that awareness, because then you would have to realize I would have to be disenchanted in the enchantment that I've put upon myself. Now, you could take full responsibility, which is highly unlikely, because you have to consider your parents played a role in that, your community played a role in that. Now, until you become aware of that kind of stuff, Jaro, this is just jargle. For most people, it's jargle, because they think, how can I put that in its place? As the observer, you're like a fly on the wall. Just feel like as though, and I talk like as though there's always children in my presence, and we're all children. Unless we can all explain, or one person can explain, well, Dominic, I'll explain to you exactly how the world came to be. Well, then I'm going to be sitting there totally blindsided. Why? Because I don't think I could comprehend it. Now, somebody else said, what I do? I said, I still can't comprehend the fact that you understand that. This is why we have to learn to share with each other. And I'm not even sharing. I don't create any of this stuff. I just cut and paste a whole bunch of stuff called on Wikipedia. That's all I did, because I don't enjoy talking to people that bastardize the fucking language. I do it quite well on myself, and I'm okay when people correct me, but they're not okay when they say, well, Dominic, why are you correcting me? I said, because you don't make money, you earn money. There's a big difference. Well, you know what I mean? I said, no, we're using a language that has many different interpretations. Don and me, I'm using you as an example, Don, we're going outside. Somebody says, oh, those are that's cool. Okay, are you trying to say our outfits are cool? Are you trying to say that we're cool outfits because it's cold outside? Do you see how we're sloppy in our language? Now, we're trying to have meaning conversation, which is fine. But that's why I told you, Greek language is a comprehension language. But it doesn't mean that everybody that speaks Greek would understand how to utilize that language. No different. I have a computer in front of me. There's no way I can learn all its capability. We limit ourselves with our arrogance by thinking that I went to school to learn what? Opposed to educate oneself. Dare not ever be in the presence of a mystic and say, well, then what are you then? Are you an empath? Are you a clairvoyant? Well, Dominic, I'm none of those things. I don't think those things exist. Well, then, did it exist that you went to the moon? Well, no. So then you're counting on the fact that somebody else told us a story. These are all stories that we give each other. There could be truth in each of them, but how would we be able to explain to somebody else, let alone convince them? Hence the word influencer, manipulation, mislead. These are words that we give each other, but they're not. Realize you should be responsible for your own vessel and what you invite in it. But we've already invited it. But the language I speak, that's the ego speaking. How would I be able to communicate with people if I didn't have my ego? How would I be able to look at a phone with no apps on it? And if there's apps, I have to have a hard drive behind it. Dare not pin yourself long enough to inquire. Now, I'm talking from the total fucking hypocrite right now, because I know I don't do that even with myself. But when I do come out once in a while, just to yip yap for the sake, yeah, I know I'm going to act like an idiot, but I'm surely not here to sell pleasantry. Okay, everybody, let's do some. I run away from fucking guided meditation. Why? Because I realize I have to be my own sovereign being, but I realize I'm already in the world with everybody else. And when I say everybody else, I'm not just including but the human factor. There's animals, there's trees, there's bodies of waters, there's rocks. Well, Dominic, those things don't count. Really? They don't count? We do that quite well with ourselves when we ignore each other as humans. You know, I've used the word many times. I don't think I've ever read in history, let alone heard about it in past. That's usually how we remember the past, by reading. They're not actually ever had what we have this technology. We would never had the written work. We would just have everything on downloaded or whatever. Did we ever work collectively? No. As a gender, as a species, as a race, as a religion, as a state, no. The only thing that's actually coming close right now is commerce. Anyway, I went on.
Dominic, so what is your definition, or do you consider yourself a philosopher, or what do you consider is a philosopher, or what is your goal in philosophy?
Okay, Jara, I know your mind works that way. You asked a bombarded question and they all went in different directions. I don't classify myself as a philosopher. Do I have moments of philosophizing? Yes. I don't make my persona as a philosopher. Am I a mystic? No. Do I have moments of being mystical? Yes. Do I have moments of repeating other people's history? Yes. But I'm not those things, let alone am I an electrician, let alone am I male. But I do experience those things. Now, for you, the question would be right back to you, your own questions, if you could break down each one. Are you a philosopher? Do you philosophize? What do you categorize yourself? These are all the things that you should be doing with yourself privately, with the self. Once you have a better grasp of what the self can and cannot do, then you can actually have comprehension, compassion for other beings, whether or not they're aware of themselves. That's part of my frustration. Because I know I have opinions, and some of them are very strong, but they're my opinion. And even that, they're not even my opinion. I'm having opinions. But I should be responsible because they do come out of my mouth. So do you think you're a philosopher, Gyro? Do you think you philosophize? You can share. I'll hear you out.
So philosophy is the love of wisdom. And so a philosopher would be a lover of wisdom. And so what is wisdom? So, what does a lover of wisdom mean? Does that mean that that person is skillful in applying wisdom, or is just seeking wisdom and from those who are wiser, and please teach me your wisdom so that maybe I could apply it. So maybe I'm just one of those that maybe I'm hoping to improve my ability to to discern.
Well, you just said the word. So love sometimes can imply unconditional. So you come to a point in some sort of action that you or thought that you're going to have a discernment, unconditional. You're not there to judge it by saying, if it's one way, I'm going to resist it, and the other way, I'm going to attach. No, you have to make a decision. In that moment, you're going to have some discernment, and then you're going to act on it. That's it. It's unconditional. If you truly hate somebody, it should be unconditional. It shouldn't be personal. Same with love. If you truly care for, say, your child, you'll know when it's love, when you're doing it for somebody else's child that has nothing to do with your obligation and duty crap. And that's what most people do as a parent. Now, not say all the time, but most times. We do that even when it comes to allegiance to our countries, opposed to, can you be unconditional? That's terminology love. But how can you be unconditional in a conditioned realm? From the material aspect. Now, from the observer point of view, you say, well, I can do it once in a while if there's anything to do. Sometimes you just be. So now, for me, I do have discernment. I could turn around and say, okay, I follow within and say, okay, Dom, today you're not going down that alley. Am I allowed to ask questions? Sure, you are. You can ask many questions as you are, but don't feel as though you're walking as you're asking the question. Stop in your place. If a person doesn't agree with war and they have discernment, stop in your place. None of this, well, I don't agree with money, but I still participate in it. If you value it, it's useless for you. But it'd be very challenging to say no to chasing money when everybody else, I'm going to use the term crazy house, everybody else is doing it. But at least you can be aware while you're in it. That's it. This is why when I hear people talk about, I don't like the fact that people that aren't being treated fairly, what, because of the color of their skin, because of their gender and all that kind of stuff. Just be observed. We live in an age today, we can't hide behind the term niscient. There's no way you can know. No, that's an excuse now. You can easily pick up a paper. You can easily read a book. You can go on some sort of device, whether it's a phone or a computer or laptop, and get all that information. Now, you can go inwards and say, okay, well, Dominic, go ahead, Jar. I see your hand.
I like to explore what you said a few seconds ago, that like, is it possible that we cannot do something unconditionally in a conditioned uh, circumstance that we're in a situation like we ideally want to be able to love unconditionally, but then you pose the premise that we can't because we're in a conditioned uh, world or realm,
Mhm.
or their situation is conditioned. That means I cannot love another unconditionally, because when we try, when we even consider loving another, we're hoping to gain something from them. Let's explore that.
I'll bring it down, Gerald, outside of the mental part. I'll go into the material part. I'll see a bird fly outside. I can't just go out and say, that's it. Me and Don, you're going to watch me date. I'm just using Don. Sorry, I'll just use another name. Whoever. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to learn today how to fly like a bird. There's conditions. It's a program running on there. Now, somebody can, whoever they are, they can create something to give me the ideal that I'm flying, such as a drone or whatever, but I'm not able to fly like a bird. There's your condition within the unconditional, because it doesn't take away the fact that some creature, for whatever reason, is able to fly. It's not right or wrong. It just is what it is. But I have discernment. I can discern the fact that I'm using these words and becoming aware as I'm saying that. I'm having many, many, many aha moments where other people in one life might get one or two. Like, oh, wow, I didn't realize what you called my uncles. Those are your brothers and sisters. That's an aha moment. Or telling somebody you're watching a scary movie, but yet, why don't we ask the cameraman? Oh, then it's not a scary movie anymore. It's no different watching Hallmark. You know, it's all being staged, right? Sure we are. So then if we know that we're forming or producing staged things, then therefore we must be staged. Hence why they use the term matrix. But are we talking from the matrix because we always have to attach some material, or is it matrix in the mind? And it just gets acted out in the physical. Listen to the word, acted out in the physical. People speak quite clearly when they say, well, what's the matter? Matter, none of my business. So you have to make it economically to help another human being. So I have to actually go to school, become a doctor or a police officer before I can actually even help you as a human being. We speak quite clearly our erroneous ways of viewing things. Now, somebody can say, well, I don't think I'm erroneous. Have you ever questioned it? Because most people don't even know within the program to challenge it. Yeah, but Dominic, if I quit, no, you're not here to prejudge it by telling other people, well, what happened if I judge it? It's like going to a fortune teller. Well, what happened if you knew ahead of time that they're going to tell you negative things? Well, what do you mean? Unknown things, that you're going to die at the age of 70 years old. And, oh, well, that's okay. But what happened if you found out a little bit more? You're going to suffer along the way. You're going to lose a couple of loved ones. Well, then what? You're not going to want to experience this life? Because now you're willingly wanting to go to death. And death for a lot of people is a warm welcome, especially if you put them in the right environment. Sure, a lot of people want to live longer, but are you living healthier? What do you mean? Well, you're eating like crap. You're going to grocery stores that have no concern for your well-being. Yeah, well, that's wrong. I said, do you think you care about another person? You only care about your own gains, your wants, which is lacks, opposed to your needs. If we were truly thriving or striving for our needs, most of us would say as farmers or hunters. But we don't do it. But we want to be entertained. Oh, I see a hand job coming up. Go ahead, buddy.
Thank you. So you're saying that we cannot love unconditionally in a conditioned realm,
I'm
such
posing that
as
as a
we are
possibility.
now.
I'm posing that as a possibility, Gerald, because that would be too much of a blanket statement. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, that's a possibility, or that's what we feel like. That's what I feel like. It like when I think of these ideals, like maybe in the Bible, there's a place where it says that love is this and love is that, and it sounds like, wow, it seems impossible. How could we achieve that? And and I just got an epiphany. uh, there, and you mentioned the Matrix. That's interesting because in that, if we look at our situation, our condition is that we are in a matrix, then we could imagine that we could get out of the matrix and see what's really going on. Then we could see the another level that maybe it's more real. That's interesting. Like this what that we're in, it seems so real. Well, it's we can kind of verify that it's more real than when we're dreaming, except that when we're dreaming, we think it's real. Actually, but anyway, so if we could get out of this matrix for a second and see what is real in that condition, then maybe we could see uh, like we're puppeteers, and we got our hand inside of a puppet, and we're interacting in a show,
Okay.
and we're playing characters. And so if we could get out of that and see who we really are, then we could say that we've been here forever, or since beginningless time. And that's a theme in Buddhism, where we say that okay, so we've been doing this play for countless lives, and then when we get out of it, and we if we were able to get out of it and look at who the actors really are, then we would see that uh, we would maybe in that situation we would love each other unconditionally if we were able to say, hold on, let's take a break, let's come out of this and say, and look at each other as we really are outside of our body, maybe our see our spirits that somehow, then we would
General,
see,
General.
wow,
Okay,
we can love each other unconditionally
okay,
because we're
General.
all the same.
If I can intercede for a second,
Thank you
it's not
very much.
good. Well, if you think you thank yourself, hold on. If it truly is, I'm just using today's metaphors, matrix. The ego is actually talking when it says it wants to go outside the matrix. And how can it be unconditional when you're too busy trying to leave? Now, what people call real, the energy that actually I usually pick up when people talk about the world is familiar. They're familiar in their awakened state that they call something that they hit something they call a wall or their hand, but meanwhile never once realizing where's the words that you're speaking onto it. See, that is indoctrination. Now, some people might hide behind the fact, well, Dom, I'm 80 years old. I said, you're still a kid. I'm a doctor. You're still a kid. What do you mean? Have you ever questioned your existence? The ego's too busy trying to run away opposed to fucking being pegged down and say, listen, who are you? Well, they got a birth certificate. That's not who you are. Well, they're telling me what to do. No, they're not telling you anything to do. Because it's like saying, okay, I'm conditioned. Well, aren't the same people that are supposedly you thinking are ruling over you using the same language? Sure you are. Well, I don't like the way they treat me. I said, okay, so why don't you be the example then? It's like, I hate the pathetic fucking yapping from people when they say, well, my parents didn't respect me. I was like, then be the example. Who's to say how they were? That's discernment. But the judgment is about me. Oh, poor me. I can't believe it. Mom doesn't understand me. That's not my role to understand you. Especially when you become aware for the first fucking time in your existence, so it doesn't matter who it is. Have you ever left that vessel? Well, no. So then who should be most responsible for you? I would have to leave my kingdom, which is highly unlikely, to go to somebody else's kingdom. And just because you go within somebody to produce a child or whatever, doesn't mean you're in them. The physical body, that's all it is. That'll be like me, somebody cutting a hole in me and putting their hands in me. That doesn't mean they're in me. You know, we could even use the Man in Black metaphor where they opened up the little brain and they saw this little character inside. That's still not you. That's still not you. Now, those are all indoctrination, believing that there's sci-fi. There could literally be creatures or beings coming from another place. And the only thing we're going to hear, well, they came from the sky. Yeah, no different if me and Don and you saw a plane for the very first time. We're going to say, we're going to report it came from the sky. We didn't know there's other landmass somewhere else. Well, Dominic, I think the earth is round. I said, okay, so I'm going to use simple observation. Forget about what NASA told me and anybody else. I'm going to use simple observation. I see trees. I see bodies of water. I see human beings. I see buildings. I look up at the two skies. I don't see none of that up there. So how can I make the assumption that we're in that too? You see the cleverness? Now, dare not somebody say, well, Dominic, I went high enough. I didn't. Jaro didn't. Don didn't. So how would you know if we're living on a planet or a plane? This is how we show each other. You're fucking still a child still. Now, I could sell pleasantries. Go in meditation. It's all good. Because it's all going to feed the ego. It's all about me. The chakras are for me. The crystals are for me. I got an education for me. Me. Dare not ever turn that around and make it the we. But even that, is the we outside or is it the we inside? Because then you'll start realizing I got parasites in my body. A long time ago, they used to call them demons. Am I supposed to work with them? Well, Dominic, you're feeding them. And going to McDonald's tells you that you're relying on other people to feed you. You think that they're for you? No, they're not. This is why when they talk about ascended masters, why? Because they accomplished their feat here being a master. So they're here to anchor this realm. The best we could do, if you want to, instead of bitch and complain, is be aware of how the game is played. What are the rules? Because some of my buddies say, well, Dominic, I want to be pretty filthy rich. I said, your family hasn't earned it. Because if you did earn it from a previous lifespan, you would have been in somebody else's womb coming out. Whether you're attractive, financially well off. Now, somebody can say, well, then I'm not really attractive. I said, in what way? You could be very attractive, both mentally and emotionally, but not physically. But most people will rely on, but the physical part, that will perish. But if you're attached to it, live with it. Kill with the sword, die with the sword. Live with your beauty, die with your beauty. If that's all you're going to bring, and a lot of people are narcissists, I'm going to spend hours putting makeup on me. I'm going to spend hours in the gym. That's a narcissist at best. Now, is it wrong? Depends on how you use it. If a woman knows I live in a male's industry and I have to use a little bit of my attraction because they like to feel good about themselves, sure, fill your boots. Because most men, like anything else, it's how we feel about what we see things. I see a beautiful woman. I see a beautiful car. Well, I don't want to be objectified. We all objectify each other. It's like when I hear people say, Dominic, I'm not a materialistic person. I say, you're full of fucking shit. What do you mean? Do you not eat? Well, yeah. Do you not need shelter? Yes. Is that not material? So then what the fuck are you yapping about, you child fucking moron? Now, I'm being a moron by saying that. When I call somebody an idiot, guess who's the bigger idiot in that moment? Me. There's a hand. Go ahead, Bello. Bello means beautiful. Go ahead, beautiful.
So I heard something that said, wow, that's right. We feed our did you say feed our demons or feed our ego?
I was saying earlier, I was talking, well, the ego we do feed, but parasites. We do have parasites in ourselves.
Parasites. Literal parasites or programs?
There's parasites. Yeah, no, there's literally parasites. And they have memories too. And a lot of times if you have an overabundance of one parasite, you will start thinking that way, thinking a certain way. That's why we have things like the reptilian brain. Why you think the reptilian brain is just based on snakes and reptiles? No, it's also we have things that look like worms in ours. And they get fed. Think about sugar, what it does for them.
Oh. Yes, the body and mind is very complicated, and it's hard to break it down. Maybe some people have tried, and I'm always in search as a philosopher, a lover of wisdom. I'm in search, or I love whatever brings me more wisdom or discernment or to try to wake me up and think clearly. And so when you heard feed parasites, I was thinking feed demons, and we're always feeding ourselves. we're we're feeding our ego, like you were saying, that whatever we're doing, we're doing it to make us feel good, or when we say we're this, that makes us feel good. And and so why is that?
Yeah,
Is,
Ro, can I speak for
is
one
it
second?
is it
Sorry, Jar.
hmm,
You had said about discernment. I'll give you an example of discernment. A person that knows how to cry and laugh. You go to a funeral, you go into an Irish wake. You'll have discernment if you understand the rules that there they celebrate death. Where you go to somewhere else, you cry at a funeral. Now, for most people, they're confused at a funeral. They usually go there because it's out of obligation or duty. But if you understand the rules, meaning discernment, I know for myself I can laugh and cry and be mad. Then you have to know in those moments how to have discernment. This is why when people get really angry and they're constantly angry, they don't have any more discernment. They don't know when to be angry, when to be happy. But that's no different when somebody comes to me and says, "No, I like to hug everybody." I said, "You don't have discernment." Why? Because you've forgotten, and I'll challenge that person and said, "You still need to ask me." And now they could turn around and say, "But I hug everybody else." I said, "That's up to them. I'm telling you, you should at least ask me." Because if that was the case, then I'll go up to every woman and guy and start grabbing their ass. And some of my buddies jokingly, just to make them feel comfortable knowing that another man can hold them, I'll grab their asses for pure giggles and kicks. Now, they might think that's rude. I said, really? It's rude, eh? So when you were cutting off somebody the other day in a car because you needed to be somewhere, wasn't that rude? See, how do we have discernment then? How do we distinguish the difference? No different when people talk about I'm black, when it clearly shows that you're light skin or dark skin. You don't have discernment. And the people that understand discernment and they're using it to take advantage of human beings, which we're very fortunate, there's the few could be a couple of millions, they giggle. And then there's the few, again, small in numbers, that are trying to help other people to become reawakening for themselves. But we can't interfere because then we would be no different than the other person that is interfering by saying, we're going to manipulate you. But you should be responsible for yourself, for the self, not for yourself, for the self. Be aware of the self, loving the self, rip a new hole in the self. But if you're not prepared to do that, then you're going to get very intellectual, which is okay. But that's all you're going to do. No different. Somebody said, well, Dominic, I'm just a feeling type kind of person. I don't like overanalyzing. I said, well, you're an idiot then. Now, they might not like hear the word. I said, well, how am I supposed to get your attention? Why? Because you're not getting your own attention. I'm going to hear your shit. And I'm realizing, okay, so does that change poverty? Does that change greed? No, it doesn't. So this is not a group learning, then it's an individual learning. Now, people could turn around and say, well, Dominic, you're preaching too much. I said, well, then we should burn all the books then. Why? Because isn't that what that's doing? Unless people only can relate the fact that, well, that guy wrote that book or that woman wrote that book because they can earn money and fame from it. Well, then they might as well be an actor then. They might as well be Hitler then. Why? Because they got enough. People talk about Hitler still. If people truly value the concept that we thought in a judgment mode that it was wrong, then stop talking about him. You're giving energy to it. And that energy will be picked up by other people. They're not built a bomb and think, well, we'll control it. But meanwhile, your offsprings won't be able to control that. Sorry, Jared, I missed your hand. Go
ahead. Thank you, Dominic. I so I get that the discernment is it varies from situation to situation. Like what you're saying about going to a funeral in one culture, you're supposed to act this way, and go to a funeral in another culture or another family or whatever that comes from a different ethnic background, you're supposed to act that way. So that means that discernment is incredibly complicated. It's not something that you can write down all the rules, like ask Ann Landers, or ask uh, or find like you go ask some expert in etiquette and say, oh, I'm in this situation, what should I do, how should I act? Or so there's no fast rules, and there's no user's manual to how to act in different situations. And
There
that's
is
why
patterns. There is
I
patterns.
find it I find it hard to interact with people
What you do,
because
Jaro?
each situation is different, and there's no book on it. But I bought lots of books, but none of them can help me.
But Jaro, you do it. I'll give you an example.
Fruitless.
You use programs. Okay, you fix you work on programs. You don't force your will, and if you do, you know the results more times than not. It's my way or the highway, right or wrong. Opposed to discernment. You have discernment when you're playing with programs, what would work and what wouldn't work in different situations. You're not going to force a program on an apple on a. Sorry, go ahead, Don.
Oh no, please finish what you're saying. I'm just raising my hand to go after you, please.
Oh, okay. So just a quick one. It's like when people say we don't fast, we all fast in our own little way. So in this case, you do have discernment because you're not going to use an Apple program on a window program. That's discernment. Now, it's not life-changing. Now, it's when you try to interchange those parts and say, well, I don't have discernment when I'm communicating with the opposite gender or my same gender. Not everybody has that ability. Some people are social butterflies. Other people have no boundaries. You know, it's not about other people's boundaries. It's your own boundary that you step over. So now I might have discernment and say, oh, hence the word educate. You bring out, oh, I know exactly what it means to have the sun over the moon. For some people, Jaro, no book in the world's going to give them that ability. For other people, they're going to have to mimic it. Not everybody are designed to be the wise woman or wise person in the community, because not every wise person in the community also know how to work with earth. Anyway, go ahead, Don, sorry.
I was going to say that, like everything here that is not real or that exists, discernment is relative. And you can only learn discernment. Discernment is not something that is achieved from reading a book because it's an experience. So, in order to have discernment, you have to experience these situations so that you can glean that discernment. You can't tell, for example, I've been very black and white for many of the years in my life. That's a part of the programming that's been in me. And when people would tell me that, the world has mostly gray or has more gray in it and that I shouldn't be so black and white, my scientific intellectual way was to say, well, let me show you how that's wrong. And I could only show them what was within my limited scope of understanding because I hadn't experienced anything else up until that point. Or if I had experienced it, I was too cut off from being able to realize it. I was caught up in my own story. But it didn't take me too long once I had my first experience with the gray zone and I got it. I had discernment regarding that topic. And so Jairo is right that discernment is different depending on your situation, your environment. Sometimes you may have to perform tasks or do things within a community or a family environment that you yourself do not embody, but you participate out of respect. That's discernment. Because the alternative might be that you're going to protest and cause a conflict where it's not necessary. It's not about you and your ego at that moment. It's about something else. And so I had to experience that as well in order to have discernment today. So I agree with both of you.
I guess, Don, the example I would give, because you used the word black and white, I'll change that quickly over to zeros and ones. If a person is using both, they are having a limited view of discernment. It limits you. Now, somebody say, well, black and white. For most people, it's one way or the other, half full or half empty. Opposed to if somebody was saying, Dominic, everything is zeros and ones. I said, I know what you're trying to imply, but what about all the other numbers? See, that's where you start now expanding your discernments. You're playing with 2s and 3s and 4s and 5s, or you're playing with black and white, red shades of colors and all that kind of stuff. But for most people, it's either or. So some people are very limited. It's this way or that way. So they might talk about black, but not white. So now that is a judgment now. You judge one over the other, opposed to discern. You can talk about black and white. There is discernment, but it's limited because we know that there's more other colors. No different, me and you. Some people could say, well, Dominic, the way to God is to read the Bible. Okay, and what language? Okay, what do you mean? Well, I'm trying to make discernment. What do you mean? I don't want to be limited knowing that the only way you get to God is only the people that can speak English or read English. So how do we not know that reading the Quran or reading the Bible in Hebrew or in Arabic is not the way? Well, Dominic, that's wrong. I said, now you're talking judgment. It's either one way and exclude all the other ways, opposed to discernment. Let's hope that those people, if there is a way to go get to God through the reading work, that everybody has the same opportunity. This is why when we used to have numbers, the Roman numbers were more, I think they were more jagged, opposed to round. Like, think about those things. A lot of people don't. Why were the number 4 very jaggedy? Why? Because when you look at nature, do you see lines in nature? It's us that created the concept of lines. And I don't think we even created it. It's been given to us. But go ahead, Jar.
You are saying that when I was saying it's so complicated, like we go from situation to situation, and it's so difficult to get it right and frustrating. Like, how am I supposed to act in this or in that situation? And I act differently amongst different people. Like, I act differently with this person versus that person. I even talk differently, and so it seems like I'm I'm learning from whatever works, and I'm programming myself constantly, and I'm referring to what worked before. But then you mentioned patterns, like saying yes, but you can use patterns.
Yes,
So
you can.
what do you refer to, or what does that mean? Using
Okay, you hear the term reason or rhyme. Rhymes is patterns. So for example, you can reason things, or you can find patterns. You see a person behave a certain way. You watch a person do a same dance step, or you can't reason how a person makes a tennis shot, but you can physically, you can observe it and see patterns. So Jaro, like I said earlier about going to a fortune teller, if they told you your gift, Jaro, you have an amazing gift. You just haven't fully tapped into it. You're still trying to fit into a world that doesn't accept everybody for who they are. So now, and it's not their responsibility for them to fit you in. They have to find their own gifts. So for you, in this case, the way your brain works or how you comprehend things, once you tap into it, your mind, for other people, they say it's all scattered. No, it's all in place. It's just that most people can't. It's like me when I used to do math. I could figure out math, but I couldn't do the work on paper because I would do it in my head. No different. Some people can phonetically sound words out. I can't do that. Even if I wanted to spend a couple of years doing it, I would realize I would always be bombarded with the fact that I have another gift that's always going to get stronger. So it's kind of like comparison. It's like I do electrical quite well. And I say to people, when I do other things like plumbing, I'm a weekend plumber. Why? Because to get to that craft that I got as an electrician, I will never compete with it. And it's not about competing. It's just knowing that I'm proficient at it. I'm efficient at it. I'm able to maintain what I can create or form in this case. So patterns are based on that. Numbers is patterns. For example, we use numbers to gauge what we call time, such as a clock or watch and the sun and the moon, but they're actually signs. We don't know what time is. What we do acknowledge is aging. It's like a tomato. Eventually it's ready to be overripe. Then some of them go back into seed. So it can either feed others, whether it's humans, birds, insects, and then it refeeds itself. And we as the same species can do the same thing. It's just, I don't know where we got the idea that we can eat animals, but we don't eat our own. Now somebody say, ooh, that's ooh. I said, really? You've never tasted it before? And the question would be more of what we are doing, not what we could do. Why do we eat animals? Why? It's a question for each individual person. Hopefully there's people out there that are still wise enough to at least break it down for you. It's like when a child asks a lot of whys. If a parent truly understands, son, I don't know how to answer your question, but I know enough to go inwards, and it'll guide me to the right person to give you that response, unless you want to go inwards. And that's why I say parents fail their kids, because they'll send them to a schooling system because they're ordered to do it, but they're not actually bring them to somebody that's actually going to help elevate their gifts. Hence Confucius talking about the first 13 years should be with the parents to find out what that child has inherited. Go ahead, Don.
I was going to say I see it differently.
So you will.
I see it differently because I believe that the human experience is the teacher for the soul. And so if we have an expectation that parents who have been programmed, brought into this system, programmed, have not awakened, not to their own fault, many of them, because it's not like they said, I want to stay asleep. They are aware. Many of us are not aware. And so it's the experience of awakening and falling asleep and awakening. That is an exact replica of the ebb and flow, the yin and yang. Be like water, because that's what is happening in reality with this life. We have to mature, learn discernment, have experience so that we can get to the levels that we are now. And then even more so, maybe we can grow. But along the way, the maturity that we achieve should not bring us to the point where we look back at other people who are still under, they're not, at the same level that we are. They're still under the spell, so to speak, and ridicule or tell them they're wrong and how come they don't know and you're bad. I see that is very cruel, and also it's not genuine. It's not being authentic, because if you're being authentic, you would remember where you came from. And I've heard that many times in my years. Remember where you came from, because it helps you along your journey to achieve the next level, and have compassion. So, for example, I don't necessarily believe that we have to not eat animals, because at some point in our world, in our existence, it was not a problem, okay? But we are understanding differently, and our souls are growing, and there is a different influence on us collectively to make a change. But the change has to come from within, like you said. So I don't believe it's fair to, and I've done it, but I don't think it's fair to look at the past and demonize it, including our own past. That's what causes many of us to go insane, to be honest. It's because we beat ourselves up about who we are and where we've come from, and we don't accept and give love for the fact that we've overcome and come to this level where we're willing to change. I'm done, sorry.
What do you mean? Be like water. That's interesting, fascinating.
Well, there's a term that at least most people understand. Water is memory. So Don, there's many words with the word re in it. Recover, remember, research. So the past, it's not about living in the past, it's about recalling the past. So now we live in a world where, Don, people that work for companies or whatever, they all get taxes taken off of them. Then why do they have you double checking the work? It goes back to families. You need a community to make sure that the parents, whether or not the parents were misled or not, this is how we double check. It's like having a business plan. You have to reevaluate it every so often, because a past, a history that's never been investigated will repeat itself for your learning. Hence why the soul keeps coming back over and over again. Because a long time ago, a lot of people chose to be in wars. warriors. So now they got to come back as a healer for themselves. Now, somebody could turn around and say, well, Dominic, I don't value or believe. A lot of times people say the word believe. That tells me where they're standing at. They don't believe in reincarnation. I said, well, then why don't you just come here for the first time and become a trillionaire? Are we thinking that this happens by accident based on the womb that you come out of? Then you're privileged? Don't know. I'm looking at possibilities. I couldn't give answers. Anybody that gives me an answer, I said, I got a shitload of questions to give you, just for pure giggles and kicks. Why are you doing that, Dom? I said, I thought you were being clever by thinking you have all the answers, or you have some of the answers, and I'm going to be clever by asking you a whole bunch of questions. I can play that game because I'm not caught up in the outcome. Now, that person said, well, Dom, you want an answer? I said, no, like I told you, I'm not caught up in the outcome. I'll pick up the energy when I hear it. Well, I went on.
Don, that Don, DAWN. What do you help me help me explore what is the meaning or the essence of be like water? How can I be like water? And what benefit will that give me? Thank you.
You are water. Be like Bruce Lee. Be like water.
Yeah, be like water. Of course, many of us picked it up from Bruce Lee. And it is referring to, this is me. This is my way of explaining it. I haven't looked at anybody else's way of explaining it. So it means to go with the flow of life. What is the flow of life? We can't control what's going to happen from one moment to another outside of ourselves. And for some of us, we can't even control ourselves. That's how manipulated we are and programmed in this world. But what it means to me is that's exactly what's happening. What's happening at that moment is it. Go with it, accept it, allow it, don't fight it. What you resist is going to come back again, and you are not learning the lesson of the moment. And water doesn't resist. Water goes with the flow. So if you have a cup of water and it's sitting on a flat surface, it will be level, okay? And that's if the cup is level. But if you turn that cup of water to the side, the water goes with its flow. It doesn't, you don't see the water working against and it's trying to get back into the cup. Let me stay. It's not my time to leave. It's so dramatic. And the way that we resist sometimes, including myself, I can be so dramatic. But if we remove the resistance and we remain in awareness, which is what we are achieving after waking, the state of awareness where it is effortless to be there, then if something comes to you that is not what you wanted, you allow it to come and you deal with it there and you take care of that situation right there, as opposed to superseding that situation so you can bitch about the fact that it came in the first place. Let me see your manager. It shouldn't be here, kind of an attitude that we get. I hope that makes sense.
Dora, I know you didn't ask me, but the concept of water has many elements. It can change into ice and it can also change into air. So now, if you're a slave, what Don just said, they would tell you, fuck off. Now, what you can do is you can learn other things when it comes to awareness. You can tolerate. So now somebody that's a slave says, okay, Dominic, you're telling me to tolerate the situation. I said, if you want to go with the flow, yes. Now, what about somebody else that says, well, Dominic, I'm rich? I said, well, you can accept it if you want. But now here's the thing that people don't realize. Once you become aware of how you lead, then you still need to understand it. So now in this particular case, know your place. Why am I accepting it? Why am I tolerating it? Because you know some of the rewards and consequences. If you want to die and you know being rebellious, your reward is you're going to die. But if you realize that you don't want to die, but that's one of the things, then that's your consequences. See, I don't bite that, Don, when people say this about acceptance and allowance. That's very narrow-minded, which is fine. but it works for some people in some situations. But for other people that are under slavery, they would say that's full of crap. But you can learn to tolerate the situation and bear it. It's like people don't like their jobs. You could say that idea, well, allow, accept it, tell you if they truly understand themselves, fuck off. But those work for certain people. Give me a second, Don. And then after that, then you can understand the nuts and bolts. This is where we use the word ignorance in its place. You ignore the nuts and bolts because the child's going to say, well, Don, whoever, why do you like your job? Well, because I accept some of the things that I can grow in. Oh, okay. So now you're giving them the nuts and bolts. No different. Somebody says, well, Dominic, why don't you accept being a master or a slave? Because there's a lot of people out there that were masters. They didn't accept it. They tolerated it. Anyway, Don, go ahead.
I was going to say, this is a good example of how words get in the way and they cause a limitation because everything is relative. So one word means one thing to you, it means another to me. Actually, we're talking about the same thing and we're saying the same thing. So in this particular case, when I was talking about allowing, it gave you the impression of restriction. It's limited.
It wasn't. It's limited in the fact that there's many ways to use the mind. So now words are experiences. There's energy behind every word we use.
Exactly. And so that's why I'm trying to say to you that my use of the word, in your mind, it put the impression of limitation. But in actuality, my use of it is an unlimited state. When I think of allowance, it gives me the ability to make whatever decision, including fuck off.
Yep, I love the word.
In the moment. And I love it. That's the thing, because while I was under the resistance, the programming that's no, you're supposed to be very good and you have to be polite and you have to do all these things and just allow people to walk all over you, when really what I want to do is punch you in the damn throat. Now, I'm not saying that that's the best choice, but being under a rigid program is also not a way to live for me either. And it doesn't allow me to be in the flow. As a matter of fact, when I unleash myself from the restrictions, oh my gosh, I feel so powerful. I feel like I am kicking ass and taking names. Like I can't go wrong.
And it works, Don, when you're looking at it personally. As a group collective, if I all of a sudden convince a whole bunch of people the word hammer now is a pistol, and you've been growing up personally thinking, well, no, a hammer's a hammer, try to convince the energy, forget about the people, the energy surrounding that, they're all acknowledging that the hammer now is called a pistol. This is where words play. There's energy behind that. The material is still the material. You look at a tree, it's still a tree. Now, somebody could say, from a distance, they all look the same. I said, not until you get close enough to realize they all have special details. But we're calling it generally a tree, opposed to a sequoia tree, a redwood tree. So now this is what I'm saying. When you say the word accept, for most people, they're not always going to interchange that word with accept as tolerate and vice versa. This is why we have to know our place. No different if you said it in a different language. I say the word fuck just for pure amusement for me, where other people, they get offended by the word. I said, okay, so if the person says love, some people get offended by it. Why? Because it's about knowing when to use that energy. It's like anger management. Why do you want to control any emotions? Did you go to joy management? Did you go to sadness management? When did we get the idea that the ego should lead by determining that's right or wrong? It depends on each moment. Somebody could genuinely be upset and say, fuck it, I don't agree with slavery. And I'm the one that's put in a position of being master, and vice versa. Should I be punished for that? Maybe. Should I be rewarded for it? Maybe. But more times than not, I would question, why are you doing anything for me? So now if a person says, Dominic, I made a shitload of money, okay, all the power to you. But I'm a trillionaire. And all the poor people are saying that's not fair. I said, it depends where you're standing. Hence the word understand. Depends where you stand. Because if you're standing on one side, it's business as usual. You're standing on the other side, they're going to give you erroneous views by saying it's unfair. I said, to who? Because if it's personally, then create your own world. But if it's a group people, there's a lot of people out there that are poor. This is where people get so caught up in the me world, which is fine. And that's one thing you're supposed to take care of. But when you live in a civilized world, you have to consider the people around you, whether fuck not you like them or not. But unfortunately, most people live in this isolated world because now we have convenience, grocery stores and all that. That's why the families are broken up. Why? Because we don't choose, because before maybe we were forced to interact with each other and use each other as heat. Because we've never learned to get out of that step of being a child. Most people become physically like an adult, but they're still children. And how I test that? By saying words like fuck, piece of shit, questioning different words. Accepting, allowance, and toleration are different energies. Now, in certain situations, you could experience them all. Sometimes you experience, I tolerate the way Dominic talks. Some other people, I accept it. I said, you don't even know who I am. So it's not about me per se. We're talking about the language. But even that's a judgment. Well, I don't like when this person said, well, you don't like, you're the word you don't like. So then what's all the categories? Your agreements or disagreements? I'm not here to please other people, let alone am I here to make them upset. That's up to them. It just reveals them. If you've been asleep most of your existence, so be it. Who knows if it's past karma? You come back and say, well, Dominic, I didn't open my mouth with my chakra when I was in this last lifespan, and now I choose to open my mouth this time. Will there be rewards? Yes. Putting your hands on the stove and then you learn something such as you know how to have a vocal cord and how to depictuate that you just hurt yourself. You've learned something. There's your reward. It's not a consequence because most people run away from consequences. What's the reward? Again, ward. I hear you, Don. I hear the word relatively. That's your way of putting a dome over yourself. Everything's relative. Well, you know, the earth travels a certain amount of denomination, speed or whatever, it's relative. So you're trying to tell me if I throw a ball up in the air, that 5 minutes later, it's going to go over there? Come on, wake up. We're fucking stationary.
No,
But now,
that's not what I'm saying at
no,
all.
I
But
know you're not.
I see that that's
Don,
how it has been related to you. And
okay,
that's okay.
Don, I put your name in it, but you do not own any of the words. We're experiencing them. The fact that you quickly defend it tells me your energy. You're doing. I'll keep quiet.
You're going a little over because I actually wasn't defending anything. I was just
Well,
like
you
you.
just, okay.
Wait a minute. I was
You're
responding.
Okay.
You gotta let me say what I'm going to say. You can't tell me what I'm saying. I mean, you can try, but it doesn't mean it's true. So what I'm trying to help you understand is that what I said meant that to you, but that doesn't mean that that's what I was saying. Your meaning is not what I was getting at. It wasn't what I was trying to do, but that's how you perceived it. And even that is okay because we're learning from each other as we go along this way. That's it. That's all I was saying. And I know Jairo's been waiting.
I enjoyed the exchange, and I learned so much from Don's uh, mm, uh, understanding and attempt to explain what it's like to flow, to be like water, and and she wondered, and then Dominic said, "Yeah, but what if we want to be, I don't know," and then but Don said, "Wait a minute, but that's not the way I saw it. But wait, okay, and but then I learned something because yes, it be like water is like yeah flow like accepting whatever comes to you and and not forcing my will on it. So there's an ego involved. But then Dominic reminds me that yes, uh, we in certain situations we need our ego to force our way through, but then we need our acceptance or flow to let that flow go by us. It's like Tai Chi or like Aikido. We use their energy and let them fall over us or something. So it seems like, yes, like there's a lot of tendency to say that, yeah, but our ego gets in the way. So what I'd like to figure out is when to use our ego to get what we want and when to tell our ego, now settle down, let it happen. You know what I mean?
Jar, we're always using our ego. So I give an example. I know I went on a little bit there, but when I envision that term like water, I'm not seeing where some people might just see the calmness of water. I'm seeing a river. I'm seeing a dam that's being bottled up. I'm seeing a cliff where spring waters go
Mm.
down. There's many variations how the water flows. But
Oh,
for
and
some people,
sometimes it becomes ice.
yes, that's different
That's
elements
right.
Sometimes
now.
evaporate.
That's right.
Now
And
we're
my
shit.
use of it, my use of that word was not limiting. It
Yes.
was encompassing of all aspects of water.
So
That's
Don,
the point of the message.
in future, and if you ever choose, if me and you are just having a conversation, me and you, and it's not recorded, I talk totally different. Because this is being recorded, I treat it like there's thousands of children here, and there's many examples. You probably forgot to understand that we're not just talking me, you, or Gyro. So for me, when I have a private conversation with this isn't a private conversation. This is recorded. So now there's other people here. I'm not one of those people where I think I'm going to try to force 30 students to think the same way. I wouldn't be in that system. There's many ways to perceive things. And I'm not the kind of person that just says, well, you just think of two ways. That's people that just break out and they now have a little bit of cognites. You have to learn how to use many ways. If you choose to be that kind of person, not everybody has that ability. So when I hear flowing of water, I see many variations. I even see the elements. I even see the word doesn't even exist that we explain it. So now for you, I heard it. It was personal, which is fine, Don. No different last week with Peter. It was personal. And that's fine. But
Yeah,
it
I agree
shouldn't
with
be
you.
personal when it's more than one or two people, when it's more than two people. It's a
I'm not
group
sure
now.
what you're talking about, but I think you may be thinking I'm feeling a certain way. I don't know what it is that you're
I could tell
thinking,
you, but
but
how I receive things and perceive things. That's up to me, Don. If I'm way off, so be it. It's not for you to
yeah,
defend or attack. I get it. I heard what you
I
said.
didn't defend, but I was just letting you know that
Mhm.
your belief, your view was different from mine. But then, even then, you perceived me saying that as a defense, and even that is okay. I don't have a problem with any of
Yeah,
it.
we're challenging
But
each other.
it
I get
doesn't,
it.
but just because you perceived it as a defense doesn't mean that it was to me. And that's what I was trying to get at, is that everything is relative to each of us. It really is. We keep,
Yes.
every time we talk and engage each other,
Mhm.
we keep showing that everything is relative to each other, and acceptance of that,
Okay,
allowing
Don.
that,
You
non-resistance
you,
to it
you
is
accept
okay.
you accept the words because you never hear it out of my mouth, the word relative and belief. I just don't. But I hear you. And I
Ah,
understand, I
so
understand what the
wait,
word means. I know what the
so
word
wait,
means
what
for
you're
me.
wait,
Was
let me
that?
make sure I understand what you're saying,
Mhm.
because I thought we agreed, but
We
I
didn't
think
agree.
now what you're telling me is that you have a problem with the word relative.
No, I don't. Don, see, this is the thing.
Uh-huh.
You said agree. Don, can you ever see through my senses? This is 101 right now. Everything your parents told you, throw it out the door. Have you ever seen it through another person's senses before? If you're honest with yourself, unless you have that ability, then what are you agreeing or disagreeing upon? I just said I've never
Well,
used the word belief or relativity, but I'm acknowledging to you I've heard you. Doesn't mean if I agree or disagree with you. It's of no
no,
concern
no,
to me,
no.
Don.
No, no, no. I don't, that's fine. But I'm trying to understand what you are saying when you say you don't use those words,
I don't.
relativity and belief. What does that mean?
I
What
just
do
don't
they
use
mean
them.
to you?
No, it's not. I just don't use them. So it's kind of like you. If you believe in something, in this case, flat Earth, whatever, you have to explain yourself. If you choose to do it, I'm not calling you out on it. I'm just telling you the word accept, and that's what I was using. Accept and allowance are words that we can use, and we do use them, and we put the energy to them. But there's other words that are with them. It's like when Jarro talked about the word life, you have to bring in the word death.
Well,
Because it's
you
like up and
do.
down. Well, that's me, and I'm allowed to share that. Now, whether people
Yeah.
say, "Well, Dominic, I'll gladly hear you," that's fine. Then I'll talk. But if it doesn't mean you have to participate, even though hearing is participating. But if I say, "Listen, guys, can I throw in the word death?" No different. Okay, maybe I'll restate it. Can I throw in the word tolerate and all that? Because if I was a person under some sort of distress, like say slavery, I was using that as an example, I would be very challenged I would have to be conditioned and forced to use the word accept or allow. I would tell my parents, screw you in the boat, because I'm a little aware in those areas where other people could turn around and say, Dominic, I'll go with the flow. Okay, there's the word. I'll go with the flow.
Okay. So I was just wanting to go back to
Mhm.
those two words, belief and relativity.
Yeah.
For you, can you help me understand what they mean to you or how they?
Don, I don't use them. So therefore, the only person that could actually explain themselves, that they should have to explain themselves, is the one that uses it all the time, which is not me. I just told
Oh,
you, I don't use those words.
oh, it's not that you're not using them because because of a reason. It's just not something that you use. Got it.
Don, I pursue knowledge and wisdom and understanding. I'm not really caught up in belief system. I could believe there was a guy named Jesus, whether he existed or not, but I would want to know who he was. And then I would ask questions such as, what does he stand for? Well, Dom, he doesn't live anymore. I said, well, then I'd rather just take the teachings and have discernment. I don't care about who existed at one time. That's what a belief is. Somebody telling me a story, with whether it's true or not, but it's not my story.
Okay. I
That's
just
all it
didn't,
is.
I was misunderstanding. I thought there was a purpose and I was just trying to understand what they meant to you. But now I understand better. That's it. Thank
I wish
you.
if me and you were both using the words constantly, I would probably tell you how I use it, but I don't. So I hear you. I know what other people say. Some people don't use the word fuck. I can give you my definition of it. That's just for me to rattle my own attention. Sometimes I'm being egotistical about it, but I'm aware of why I'm doing it. Where other people say, well, Dominic, you're going to defend me because I'm using the word? You know, it's funny. It's interesting when people get caught up that they feel as though they're being defended or attacked. I'm just using that. It's a perpetual cycle. But yet I start ripping into myself. I say, well, are you going to defend me now? I don't need to be defended. I'm just saying it out loud. I don't take it always personally, especially when I know it's beyond my scope. It's okay, maybe for me it's personal, but when it comes to other people, there's a different world. I don't choose to be in groups. Well, a whole bunch of Italians are being treated a certain way. That's not me, but I can at least show empathy and compassion, how they treat each other. People get neglected, people get abused and all that kind of stuff. But to me, I don't put value on that stuff. I'm not saying I don't have belief systems on it. I just don't put value to it. And I hear what I say to myself. Those things don't even come across my mind because
I
I've done the
actually agree with
investigation.
you. I know Hyra wants to speak, but I was going to
Right?
say, I agree with you. I'm not into belief systems either.
But you do say the word belief. If you listen to the recording, you might not believe in what you say, but your words say it. It's like somebody saying, go over there, but meanwhile, you're supposed to go over there. I said, you're misdirecting yourself, and I'm trying to follow your conversation. No different.
Yeah.
Other people
So
say,
my use of the word belief does not match your use of it.
I don't
And
use
that's
it.
okay.
No, I don't use it. Now,
Oh,
based on the
okay.
definition,
Okay.
that's all I'm
Okay.
saying.
But that's fine. But you have to let my definition of belief work for me and your non-definition, that's fine.
I can't
There's
confront it,
nothing
Don.
wrong
I
with it.
can't confront it because I don't. It's not as though you're
Yeah.
saying right or wrong. I'm just saying I have my version of based on somebody else's interpretation of beliefs. I said I don't practice that. That's all I say. I don't practice it.
Well, my use of the word belief does not mean that I believe in or use belief systems. That's not me either. But that's what I heard you say. But I want to let Hiram speak.
Okay,
Sorry
sorry,
about
Jara.
that.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm trying to understand, and so I'm going to try to summarize what I've heard and what I've learned from the both of you. So I think I heard Don use the word "I believe" when she was trying to explain what water and flow is like, and so and so then there was a a mention that or maybe Don said, I believe it this way, and you might believe it that way. But then Dominic says, no, hold it. Wait a minute. Time out. I don't use the word believe because I'm not into belief systems or something like that.
No,
Or
I
I
am
don't,
in it. I
or,
am,
or that,
Jaro. I just don't
or
say
that
the
when
word.
I don't say the word as in I believe this because if I say that, maybe then people will think that I have a certain system or philosophy. I don't know. What do you mean by not using it?
Okay, Jaro. We have many dogmas. They're belief systems. I question my buddies when they say Dominic bullshit. I said BS stands for either Bachelor of Science or belief systems, which is fine. Now, I'm interested in knowledge. And I put a lot of effort to know things and then hopefully get wisdom and understanding from it for myself and how I can fit it in. But for a lot of people, a religion is a form of a dogma. It's not as big as commerce. Science is dogmas. Those are belief systems. Those are stories. It's like me and you and Don being in a gang. Somebody believes this is how we crack an egg. He's no longer alive, but we're still practicing that. That's a belief system. I just don't say the word. I know that I'm in a belief system. Dogmas. I just don't like when people say I make money opposed to earn money. Dom, it's BS, bullshit. No, it's belief system. Why? Have you ever seen an animal shit before? Bullshit. It shouldn't offend anybody unless you don't like the smell of it. But even that, it serves a purpose. Even a belief system serves a purpose. So when I hear Don or a lot of people talk about it, I cue on what they say and I hear patterns. That's me now. And there's energy behind all of that. So now when I hear it, I'm like, okay, so is that person trying to do discernment or wisdom or knowledge or beliefs? There's no right or wrong because we're interchanging them on a regular basis. That's why I was telling you, Gyro, you do use discernment. You just don't do it all the time. It's like, do you put a lot of thought about what all your knuckles are doing in your hand? Probably not, but something is. It's beyond the scope of the ego to grasp that. Because if not, then we should just stand still then when we go to sleep. We don't work that way. Same when you're awake. But a belief system, in this way, an indoctrination, it will teach you this is how we want the outcome to be, opposed to the input and then doing the outcome. Their input is pre-recorded, like some high-tech AI to get the same result. Go ahead, Jar.
Let's explore.
Sorry, Jaro. I can't hear you, Jaro.
I couldn't hear anything you said after the word explore.
Explore what it would be like as a practice. Like I'm gonna try see if I can do it. What it would be like to let go of all my belief systems, and to do that, I would have to before I express myself, I would have to see. Am I saying I believe this, like a declaration, and instead of saying I believe this, I could replace it with there is this idea that I'm fond of, and then but that doesn't mean that it's set in stone. That's just an idea that I'm I'm considering if it would be beneficial. And that way we can let go of all our belief systems that we could see, not let go of them all of a sudden, but we can recognize them and say, okay, this is a belief system. Is it beneficial for me? And should I continue it? Like, should I continue eating whole wheat bread? Because I heard this Dr. Gundry or something like that saying that whole wheat bread, it's got this thing in there and it's bad for your stomach and all that. And so so I should say I should entertain everything I believe in and see, is it benefiting? Should I let go of it? And so maybe the reason why I suspect that Dominic is practicing not saying I believe is because he's trying to entertain knowledge and concepts and evaluate them and consider them instead of saying, oh, this is what I believe and so I am awesome.
That's words, Joe. It's just words. Like I can believe that the car starts every time, or I can go out and know it does. It's a bit of both. You know, like some people out there, they value the concept. They're going to stop drinking or whatever, and they have to believe that this chip that they do, and they validate it over and over again. Say, I'm on my 12th step, 13th week chip. If that works as some sort of apparatus, it works for you. I just know myself. I don't say the word. That's all. I'm just saying I don't say the word. I don't say I don't practice it. It's like I actually know a lot about health. Doesn't mean I practice it. Sorry, go ahead, Dawn.
I was going to say that it's not about just the word. It's about the word with the intent behind it.
Oh, I'm with you, Dawn, 100%.
The energy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the confusion, the conflicts happen. And our worlds have changed many, many times over. We are no longer in a literal environment. I used to be very literal with my words, and I had this assumption that everyone understood it exactly what I meant every time. And I remember becoming frustrated with a friend because I was like, no, I said this, and that's only what I meant. I didn't mean any of those other things you were saying. And I was so asleep. I was, like I said, snoring. He was trying to help me to understand that, yeah, he heard what I said, but those words meant something different to him. And I just, I'm like, oh, you must be a big ass dummy, because why, I just was so, I couldn't get it. I couldn't see myself. Once I realized that that was the issue, is the words have different meaning based on people's experiences, it allowed me to take a step back, because that's what the problem is I use the word make. And I know now, after talking to you, hearing you, Dominic, I see what's happening is because, you didn't create that. You didn't make that. Okay. You're using it. But today, in our society, at least in my community, the word make has many meanings. It's not just a creator or a creation. That's where we are. We're in mixed up world. And I have a theory that even that is supposed to be happening, a breaking down of the languages, because they're unnecessary. There is another way for us to communicate, I believe, collectively. And perhaps it's a story. Perhaps that is where we're going. It's an option of a destiny for us to reunite under one group of humans on this planet.
Don, I would embrace that possibility. I'll give you an example. I used also the word value. So there's things I value, there's things I don't value. And I'll give you an example. For me, there's words that are depictuated for Europeans and people with dark skin. They'll say the W word or the N word. And I'm like, And Don, you said a valid statement. One's intent. Give me a second, Charlotte, because this to me is an explanation for me how I value things. So now, I don't like being hearing the word WOP or NIGA, and all that. But for other people, their intent might not be to be mean to each other, but to use the word anyway, knowing that other people can abuse that word. I just don't value saying the word out of my mouth. I'm not telling them what to do. Now, I might question and say, listen, if you don't like how other people use it on other people, then why do you enforce by saying it yourself too? It's like a woman, if she wants to call herself, I'll use the word bitch, that's fine if she wants to do that, preferably privately. But if she says it in front of a bunch of other people, and then they start mimicking the word fuck, kids start picking it all up, and other people go, well, that's wrong. I said, well, then you have to be careful who you say it in front of, or set the rules that say, okay, privately, us ladies can say that word, but among other people that are men, we shouldn't say that word. Why? Because we're not here to encourage it, because they might misinterpret it and have, like you said, Don, different intent. So I don't say those words. I don't have the intent that I want to strive for just believing in something. I want to actually know about something. I want to have the discernment of the difference too, if possible. But I would never denounce myself to say, Dominic, but you still have belief systems. Yes, I do. I just don't say the word. I know I'm light skinned. I know if I'm with a bunch of albinos, I'm dark skinned. But I don't have to say the word. That's validations, and that's fine. And I'll observe that with other people by hearing them. Now, I can also observe energetically, but I will observe it and say, oh, yeah, I've heard you. I'm not here to agree or disagree. I'm too busy listening from within. And part of me said, Dominic, it's a catch-22. It's a catch-22. If you say you agree with them, what are you saying about other people? And if you say you disagree, what are you saying about other people? Now, some people say, well, Dom, then you can't really move at that position. I said, I can observe from that position. Jara, go ahead.
Yeah, this is fascinating. It just came to me. I'm getting it.
Good for you.
I see that Dominic is is got the mindset of of observing and looking at things the way they are, and others that that say, I believe this, or in my opinion, or this is the way I see it. and so Dominic is getting annoyed, because why do you impose your belief system, and why do you want
I
are
never
you
said that,
trying
Jaro. Jaro, I never said that.
to
I'm sorry,
convert? No,
buddy.
no, I'm paraphrasing. What I'm
Okay.
trying to say is that is that we live in a society that belief is most important, and even and I think that's a defect of Christianity itself, because Judaism, from which Christianity came from, is so different that and we try to put them together like, oh, they're the same. We believe in the same God and we can be friends. It's just that the Jews, they decided, not ignore Jesus, but we're all the same. But actually, they're so different, because because in Judaism they actually debate God. They have they wrestle God, and they question their own ideas of God. They're always uh, uh, but Christianity is, oh, you gotta believe this way. You gotta, and what you believe will save you. That's something so strange. Like Judaism, they don't say, I believe this and this will save me. No, they're just trying to to live life wisely, and they reference their books, which we call the Old Testament Bible, but they call it something else. So they're always questioning and analyzing, and that's why they have debates with each other on what is God and all this, and the angel. But Christianity was more like this is the way it's going to be, and they had the Nicene uh, council, and they say, okay, this is what we're going to believe. There's a Trinity, and we got to do this and that and so it's like a programming. Like a virus that spread all over Europe, and so everybody, okay, now we got the Catholic Church having everyone believe this way, and now we can take over the world. So so belief is so important. What you believe, then that's what you are. But in but in Dominic is waking up because he's seeing the fault on that, because that doesn't allow you to flow like water, be like water. Because
Jaro,
when you
Jaro,
believe, you're frozen like water, frozen
Jaro,
ice.
Jaro, I'm not disagreeing. I'm just being aware. Commerce has belief systems. Playing around with money is a belief system. To convince a whole bunch of people to play with money, including me, is a belief system. That's all it is. To know that that's how it's played, that's fine. I'm not once saying I disagree or agree. It's like if I told Don or whoever, so listen,
Okay.
I'm showing a lot of actions of love. For some people, they like to hear it once in a while, and I'll entertain them. I say, okay, it's fine. If that helps you, I'll say the word love. There's other people, they did do nothing more than say the word love, but they don't show it. Same with belief, same with knowing, same with wisdom. You're taking the words, saying how you perceive it, because I didn't say those words, and I'm here to validate for myself. I like it when people correct me how I pronounce words. So I'm correcting it by saying, Jaro, I'm not against belief system. I just said a simple thing. I just don't say the word. That's it. Sorry, go ahead, Don.
I forgot what I was going to say.
I apologize. I apologize
That's
for going
okay.
on there.
No, I'm not complaining. I was being goofy because I'm old.
We're all old, Don. We're all old.
I know. I'm an old goat over here. But but anyway, what you were saying, Jairo, it made me think about when I first decided to. So first of all, I was programmed in, inner city Baltimore, being very intelligent. So I witnessed and experienced some of the most craziest choices that people make in the Black community. But I was always different. So I was always going to the top schools in my state. So that means I had to take a city bus and go into the county and go to the schools. And of course, I was different. I'm being trained different. I'm being programmed different. So when I grow up in this neighborhood that's totally crazy, I can't even just tell you about how insane it is. To be the kind of person that I am and don't fit in. It was horrible. I was constantly abused by the children.
Sorry about to hear that, Dawn.
constantly. It was horrible. I mean, some of the most horrible things, even being stabbed in my head with a pencil.
Are you really? Oh.
You know,
Mm.
why? Because I was different. And you know, and I actually didn't fight. I was taught not to fight, not to get into it. But let me tell you, eventually I started kicking some ass and making sure people understood, you know, you need to leave me alone. But the point I was actually trying to get at was I was raised to believe that Black people were unfairly enslaved, and therefore we were not given the opportunity to become educated like the rest of the America. And so we have to have a leg up. You know, we have to have a leg up because we're not very smart. So, you know, you have these groups over here, even though you want this job, you can't get it on your own merit. You have to have this group give you a leg up. And to make it fair, they'll give you a few extra points above the other people because they're already super smart. Oh, it was horrible. And I was at the top of my class, always.
So you had to
And
be
so,
the extreme cases to be accepted, sad as that may be.
isn't that horrible?
Sure it is,
And it
Dawn.
was one of the last few times I ever saw our society really elevate those who stand against the wind. But what I was getting at was I was indoctrinated to be democratic, you know, a title,
Yeah.
which is why today, when titles come, I kick them because I don't want it. Because eventually I peaked on the other side, which is what these titles don't want you to do. Because once you take this title, it means you have to agree with all of these other things. It comes with a plethora of other ideas from other people. I don't want it. I don't want to be a part of it. So I looked on the other side and I said, oh, yeah, this is where I belong. I hadn't even voted. My first time voting was for GW, the baby, the son. And I voted for him twice and I haven't voted since. Because I realized these are two sides of one coin. They're working against us. There's something else going on here that has nothing to do with this world that they're trying to really get us to agree to participate in. And so I had to detach myself little by little. It took a lot because I was really programmed and I was very, very good at the programming I received. But I've always been different and I went my own way. And that has not been an easy decision to make. Everything has a black and white from my experience. Every single thing does, because I could make a different choice and have a completely different outcome. It's infinite possibilities. And so I feel like that flow of life is showing me to not spend so much time fighting this nonsense that's going on here.
Dawn, if I could share, I grew up with a bunch of my acquaintances that were of different cultures and color skins. And then when they got older, they got a lot of marriages were intermixed marriages, whether it was light skin marrying dark skins or dark skin marrying Asians and all that. And me being the observer, I heard some of my friends, oh, we're getting accepted. I said, no, that's full of crap, because I've been around other people that hang around their own cultures. They tolerate each other. So they don't even understand, like even with you, Dawn, being a dark-skinned young lady, fitting into, with your own belief systems, fitting into a whole bunch of other kids, they have their own belief system where they've never learned how to think for themselves, saying, well, we have to combat it because we don't accept it. That's why I say I don't value it, because I've seen the energy too much. People tolerate each other, then they give each other pleasantries. Be honest. If you really hate a person, at least we can at least talk about it. It's okay, what do you really hate? And then you realize it's not the person they hate. They just have the word hate. It's like when Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, they were talking about it, is when we're not judged based on the fucking color of our skins and our genders. But I know that sounds very idealistic, but I'm being honest when I hear that shit. This is why I say, it's nice when people say things, I believe. I said, but are you putting the energy with it? Like you said, the word intent. If a person truly believes in reading the Bible and they're going to go to heaven, who am I to tell them otherwise? But it's the ones that are pretending. Oh, I'm a religious person, but meanwhile, you have no problem stealing from other people. I said, pick a side. At least we know where everybody stands. It's good to know when people are hating human beings. At least you know where they stand. Now, is it fair to treat a young girl that's of different color skin? No, but people do that. Yes. So now the question is, who's doing the hating? Is it some adult that's pretending to be a child, or are they brainwashing their kids to do the same thing? Because kids should intermix with each other. It doesn't matter the color of your skin, your genders, your economic status. But once you get to a certain age, I can't hang around with you anymore. Why? Because you're of a different class. So then what do go ahead, Troy, Don.
Just to quickly be clear, I lived in an all-Black neighborhood. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that.
But I grew up where it was a mix of all cultures. So I got to see when you start intermixing the multicultures among people that were living, all Italians or all Filipinos, all Jamaicans, or Barbados. I said, you see how these little cliques are, where my buddies used to say, well, let's talk our native language. I said, no, we're in Canada. Everybody here speaks differently. None of that crap. We got to speak the common language, English. I don't want to hear some Rasta Safarian with his long voice and all that, and vice versa. But if I'm at his house and I'm talking to his aunt, I expect to hear that Jamaican accent. And it's my responsibility because I'm in their house. And this is where people forget, respect one another, but we have to learn to respect ourselves. Now, most of us don't have that opportunity because we've been bombarded by the time we reach 9 or 10 years old. A person has to live. Well, how does it feel being handicapped? How does it feel being dark-skinned in a community? Well, it's pretty tough. I know it's even tough when you're around your own culture because everybody puts these pretentious levels of achievement. You could be European. Oh, I got to make sure I'm the top of the class. Well, for what reason? Are you enjoying it? Does it come more naturally for you? Because if it does, then you can help other people that are struggling with it. I'm sounding very idealistic now, but it doesn't take away from the fact of what I see. See, people will say, Dom, I'm offended by your words. I say, well, and how am I supposed to feel by what I see? What I'm actually seeing people doing. You know, just recently, regardless of who did it, a whole bunch of men killed another human being in America. How am I supposed to see that? Now, somebody could turn and say, well, then maybe we'll be like other countries. We don't report that. Oh, okay. So we do it in silent, secret. Okay. So am I supposed to say that my best friend that just got killed by a police officer or by another human being because he went in the military? Am I supposed to ignore that? Then we wonder why we're damaged. But I can make it personal. And for a lot of people, when they make it personal, they try to isolate themselves. It's nothing to do with me, Don. Really, has nothing to do with you. Well, okay, so maybe you should spend $1,000 gazillion to buy that computer because you're the only one that's buying it. Don't you think it participate? This is where people forget we're interdependent with each other. Now, if there's other species interfering with us, okay, that's fine. But we still have to take accountability for what we're doing to ourselves. Regardless if we're being treated like puppets on a string, you're still allowed to be aware. I'm not saying you're here to fight the system. I'm here to be aware of the system. Now it's being bombarded. I just heard a young lady, in this case you, Don, explain, maybe it made you stronger, maybe, but there's a lot of people that fall by the wayside when they get into those situations, being bullied, being treated just based on the color of my fucking skin. No different when I talk to a whole bunch of women. Oh yeah, I forgot, I'm in this form. Women don't talk to men when they're in a male form. I said, why can't I? I'm bringing my feminine side, let alone my masculine side. Well, Dominic, but you're a man. I said, oh, so am I a man more than you just think you're a woman? You know, if I want to find out how it is to bear a child, I would have to ask a woman. And I've actually asked my wife, and I said, is it like taking a crap? Well, Dom, you're lucky. You talked to the right person because I did both. Not even close. Okay, thank you. End of the conversation. I don't have to, but you get a whole bunch of men making their speculation like they do with philosophy. I wonder how it is to bear a child. None of us have never done it. So the only thing we could do is give possibilities. That's philosophizing. But how can you philosophize when you think you already know the answer? Well, I don't think women really suffer through childbearing. Well, some women, some of them probably do. Some of them don't. But I don't experience it. I don't experience this, so I would know either way. Anyway, I went on another rant, guys.
Yes. So what have I learned today?
Please share, Jarl. Please share.
I'm always trying to learn something from these sessions so that I become wiser. Oh, maybe this will help.
What is it, Jaro? Let's see. What is it?
The
Oh,
bucket of wisdom.
it's getting smaller.
Oh. Hmm? Hmm. The bucket of wisdom.
Please share. Bucket
Let's
of
see.
quotes. That could be wisdom.
The bucket of quotes of wisdom. Let's see. Mm, mm. Huh? Uh, 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 I'm trying to. Oh, this one feels different.
Mm,
Uh, oh,
candy. It's
ooh,
candy.
it's like a fortune cookie thing. Let's see what it says.
Love
I
that
can't
name.
wait. It looks small. Holy shit! Look how long it is. Yeah. Let's see. Compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. Compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It's a relationship between equals. Only when we know our own darkness,
Mm,
our shadow, only when we know our darkness well, can we present with the darkness of others. No, can we be present? Not can we present. Can we be present with the darkness of others?
mm.
Compassion becomes real when we recognize our shared humanity. Oh, I like that. It's
Synchronistic to our topics today.
Mm.
wow, something to meditate on, to take it with us for the rest of the day and think about compassion as being equal with others, as treating others uh, equally, something like that. That's what it. Oh, because when I think about compassion, oh, I feel compassion for that person that's sick, so I'm going to be the healer. I want to be a healer, and I'm going to heal them with my mantras. Oh my.
Jaro, do me a favor. Can you? I always like the word present and presence, like it's kind of same gift. Reread it again, please.
Mm, yes. Compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It's a relationship between equals. Only when we know our own darkness well can we be
Mm,
present with the darkness of others. Compassion becomes real when we recognize our shared humanity. Oh, that sounds
So
beautiful.
in that statement, Jaro, what they're saying, it's not about the one person that's healthy and the other person that's sick, is when a person can relate with their own sickness with the other person that is sick.
Oh,
When
that's good.
when people lose a loved one, only if you've experienced it. I've never lost a loved one. I've lost animals and I've learned the wonderful world of attachment, but I've never lost my parents. So when my friends talk about losing their parents, only thing I could do is hear them. I really can't show compassion
Mm.
because I've never had that wound, but I've had other wounds. Maybe I can cross relate, but when it literally comes from losing somebody that brought you into this world, I've never had that yet. And more likely, knowing the pecking order, I'll probably would be the first one. Wouldn't want my mom to have to experience me going first. But I've lost what we call pets. I've lost other things that are probably less, but it still does bring some sort of grief to me. Losing a job, losing a drone, losing the attention of a loved one, which is a friend or whatever. A lot of times I get into relationships with people where we never get started. I don't know if you guys ever felt that, it's like, oh, we had a great conversation. So is it going to build? Not really. It might as well be a one night Zoom chat, which I get it. But then that proves to me for myself, then Dom, you have to be stronger when you're alone, because loneliness you can always have when you're around other people.
I
They're
like
fleeting.
I like what you say at the beginning with the healer versus the wounded.
Mhm.
When you equalize them, then you realize that you're wounded too. So I have to heal myself in order to heal others. And that reminds me of that doctor from Hawaii that made Ho'oponopono from Hawaii
Mhm.
popular worldwide. Well, I heard the story that he went into, like early on, he went into the hospital ward of people. I don't know what they were, maybe the leprosy or something. That a lot of people were very sick, and he he uh, he was in charge of it. And what he did to is he worked on himself and healing himself and working on himself
Mhm.
to forgive himself, forgive others,
Mhm.
and love others, and all that. And he's just working in the place all day, but not trying to say, oh, I'm going to heal you people with this medicine or that. No, he
Mhm.
just kept working on himself, but being around them, and gradually the people around them, around him, the patients in the ward, they got better and better and better, and the whole place got healed by him working on himself. He recognized that there's something that I need to work on. Maybe it's past karma, and he cleared it all, and that radiated love for all of them, and they healed each other and themselves.
Jaro, when you learn to be the teacher from within, when you're around other people and you've learned how to heal yourself, your spirit will communicate with other spirits. What happens is most people, when they're in the presence of other spirits, they know when they're full of crap. So when a person's healed themselves, then they're in the presence of somebody else that's sick. You're being an example to the other spirit that it's possible and you can do that. So a
Mm.
lot of us have forgotten a lot of that stuff. What we do is we get caught up in the material. We think for some reason, not to take away from the pharmaceutical industry and the surgery, there's some things that can be corrected with the physical body, but there's the internal body. And a lot of times it's the spirit that actually says, I'm here to learn too. And I want to be around other people that know how to teach each other by example, probably spiritually. No different if I'm around somebody that knows how to play basketball. I'll watch them. Now, if they're too busy being egotistical, I'm too busy being screened by the teachings. This will reveal to me I'm too busy caught up in the person. So we all can learn something from each other. It's just that we forgot it's all the conditionings. This is why I say we get masked by the color of our skin, our genders, our professions, our notoriety. Those are just things. And that's where you humble yourself and say, okay, like I like Michael Jordan, whoever character, Muhammad Ali, you can use any character. So listen, did they create the industry? Well, no. Did they create the opponent? No. So you humble yourself. Then we're all equal in certain ways. Not to take away the fact that they're taller men and they might have to consume more food than me, but at least I know we're equal when it comes to the spirit. And even that I might be guessing too.
Mm.
So back to the, compassion, no different with success. If I'm around somebody that's really achieved something amazing, I would have to use cross relationships of some of the achievements I've done so I can give that energy to them by saying, oh, you're well done, you've achieved a great career or whatever. I've done my own career too in certain ways, but if I've never classified that as a success, then what am I really giving them? I'm giving them lip service. Now, some people think that they can fool people. It's like when parents say they're going to have a divorce, but they don't tell their kids, but then they wonder why through observation your kid's getting obese, your kid's acting out. Why? Because you're not sharing them the truth of what's going on in the household. But
Mm.
energetically, your spirit is picking it up. See, this is where I tell people, I said, when you're awake, who's running the body? When you're asleep, who runs the body? It's not the ego. The ego's job is just to learn how to move its hand when it's told to move its hand, when to eat based on their likes and dislikes, know how to use language. But there's a technology running beyond the scope of the ego. Now that's each individual person to discover that, because it might be different interpretation. You might be the creator within one of those vessels. Maybe, I'm guessing at that point, guys. And I like to use the word guess because I know a lot of people say, well, Dominic, how do you know for sure? I said, I'm guessing. So don't think that for some reason I'm telling you something that's the truth. I'm being honest when I say I'm guessing, but I'm not telling you it's I can prove it. Now some people say, well, then why would you talk? Well, then why do we make movies of scary movies or sci-fi side? Because we want to be entertained. Now,
Thank you for
right,
thank you, Dominic, for entertaining us
I try my best.
with with the compassion that we have to have for ourselves,
Yeah.
and and concern maybe compassion is too loaded and too incredible, idealistic, too wonderful a word that we
Could
could
be.
never achieve perfect compassion. But maybe we should start off with the we can do. We can at least have concern for others.
Baby
At,
steps.
at least have respect for others.
Could be.
At least try to remember that others may have the same problems we're having, and so maybe the best we can do is love ourselves and try to fix ourselves
Okay, there's an
before we
example.
try to fix others.
Darrell, there's an example, and only Dawn would know this because she experienced it. Was there ever any adult in that schooling system that stepped in between what the kids were doing to you?
Um, it was more the neighborhood kids, you know, it's just other Black kids. So after I got to a certain level in the school, then I found protection from a teacher. That's, you know, after that in elementary school,
Mm,
it was almost like I was just handed off, like they were trying to protect me
mm,
along the
yeah.
way because I didn't have a mother that was interested in my abilities. So yeah, it was a little bit of a lonely path, but you were right earlier when you said that it strengthened me because I am magnificently different from all of them.
I could tell that
And
way.
it's awesome.
I could tell that,
And
Dawn, when I talk to you. I'm pretty sure if I hugged you, I would know I'm talking to a true fellow being and all that. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people under those same circumstances. Sadly, they fall by the wayside.
that's what I was going to say.
Sorry.
I was going to say that that's what they expected me to do. It's like, hey, you gave up on this community. Of course. You're not, you know, am I supposed to choose to go the path where I see it leads to darkness and suffering? No, I can make a different choice. And the world did beat me down. You know, I had to learn some lessons because I had so much inexperience. You know, I was kept, you know, my mother kept us very much closed off from the world.
Mm,
So I had a lot to accept. I'm still accepting a lot of things about what life really is about. But I think I can truly say that right now I am at one of the most happiest times of my life.
I'm glad to hear that, Dawn. There's a good chance, I'm guessing at this point, maybe your mom, she got beaten up when she was younger, mentally, emotionally.
Absolutely.
And this is how
Absolutely.
it goes back to when somebody says, what does a person that's been molested do? A lot of times to try for them to understand it, they'll do the molesting themselves. Where who do you blame now? No, it's about who do you help now? Because everybody that's involved are being hurt. It's the wounded soul, everybody. Those kids that are doing the cruel things to you are no different. A bunch of Asian kids getting together, and they're not cruel to each other physically, but they're cruel to each other by saying, you only got an A, I got an A plus. So all of these things harm each other because we don't question it. And this is where I was saying earlier, was there any adult that stepped in and said, listen, this is not about picking any of these sides. I'm going to try to diffuse this. And this is why we need always adult supervision, preferably ones that are mature. But for a lot of teachers, they're there for a job. You know, they're not there truly to be a housekeeper and all that kind of stuff. But it's nice when a teacher says, I'm going to go beyond just being a teacher. I'm going to be a human being. And I'm going to care for these souls, regardless of what they look like and how they talk. Because a lot of times people that are wounded are the ones that are more aggressive. No, sorry, that's overgeneralizing, not all the time, but sometimes.
No, but there's that saying, hurt people hurt people. I think you're
Yeah.
exactly correct.
Oh. No, you think I talk because I'm very kind? Oh, I'm hurt too, but there's ways I can learn, and hopefully in years to come, preferably in a moment, I can learn to not be so with my voice. But then again, I also get a little irritated when I think everybody thinks it's kumbaya. I'm like, okay, so that would be irritating for some people too. You know, but I do have my moments of kumbaya, meaning like, oh, everything's going to be okay. Okay, that's fine. I'm not a total nihilist.
Hey,
But I'm also,
Joel.
hey, Joel.
Wow. I I I had a little bit of abuse growing up, but it was more like bullies,
Yeah, I can say I do
I
sometimes
guess.
to you, Jaro. You could reprimand me for that too.
sometimes believe. And so then I decided to take some karate. Then I will defend myself. Maybe I should try some karate again to uh, uh, slim down. Uh, uh, and so
You're looking
I
sexy.
took some karate, and and so I saw on TV the television show Kung Fu,
Yep.
and it had some wisdom from China. Maybe it
Hey,
even mentioned flow like water, things like
Gerald.
that. Like be more flexible, because if you're flexible, then you won't break. If you're stiff, then you
Mhm,
could break, and things like
mhm.
that. Ideas like that. And
The- the-
so, so I went to the bookstore and picked up a book on Chinese philosophy, and so it had little pretty pictures of bamboos, like uh, black ink uh, Chinese paintings, and it said Confucius said this, or Lao Tzu said this, or
mhm.
and then I picked up a book on the I Ching, I Ching, and so, so I got a bunch of collections of I Ching books. Look, this one is so huge. That
Mhm.
that one, this one I picked up when my friend died, and he was a big fan of I Ching.
Mhm.
So when they had the estate sale, so I went and grabbed all his I Ching books. I Ching, so I got a bunch of those.
Yeah, Jaro, that's one thing for sure about you. You enjoy and you compliment people that have written books. Here in
Mm.
Canada, we have a reduction on bullying because a lot of the kids now are not forced to, but they're coerced to play Da Vinci, and that calms their soul. Did you know that? Did you know that's why Canada is a reduction of bullyism going on because a lot of people are playing Da Vinci. We don't even have politicians anymore. We just have Da Vinci. Everybody tries to learn everything. Sorry, Joel, I had to throw that in there for you.
Plug his work.
I didn't
If
realize you
if
knew
it will
that,
take
Dominic.
Canadian.
if Vinci will take over the world, then it'll be a better world, because games you have to be considerate of others and take turns, and it's organized, and it exercises uh, critical logical thinking skills and
You know
stuff
what we're
like that.
thinking, Jar, what we're thinking of doing here in Canada, they're trying to mandate it through the parliament. We're going to take the Mona Lisa painting down and put the Da Vinci painting up of Joel's of his game and all that kind of stuff. We're planning on doing that, and then we're going to start selling it for like millions of dollars. We're going to pay back our debt within 3 weeks.
Mm.
Hi, Joel.
You just,
Mm.
I think you're going a little over the top here, Dominic, but
Should be your. I should be
I know
your.
you have good intentions.
I want to be your PR guy, Jar. You know that, Joe. I'll be your PR guy. By the end of the year, we're going to have everybody buying a pair. You'll go to a store, you buy a bra and a Da Vinci game. You buy an underwear, you buy a Da Vinci game.
Mm.
You know, if you don't want to pay your taxes from now on, Dawn, when she does her accounts, she goes, "Yeah, in Canada, you just have a whole bunch of Da Vinci boards, and that'll pay your debts."
Mm.
Lucky for me, at least I played the game once, even though I got beat by my cat, but I did enjoy it. Dawn's going to bring her dog one day. I see him. We've been talking to him the whole time. Sorry, Dawn, is your dog a boy or a girl? Sorry.
It's a girl.
Oh, she's a cutie. She's a
Thank
cutie.
you. She really, really is. She's a joy.
Mm.
And this has been an interesting topic today. We've gone and we were in flow. We allowed a variety of
Mhm.
topics to flow through us today, Joel.
Yes, thank you.
I
I
don't
learned
remember
so
where we
much.
started.
I learned about how to flow and how to be compassionate with oneself, how to be concerned, how to love one another, others, starting with oneself, I would say. Well, I'd like to think. Hmm.
Mhm. There's the old
Yes,
saying,
pretty,
you fake it till you make it.
that too. Yes, yes. And now I'm going off to do yoga.
Mm.
And well, it starts at 11:30 at the Buddhist temple, the Chinese Buddhist temple. and they have yoga there with my friend Maria. She teaches yoga there now, or she has been, but due to the pandemic, they closed the Chinese temple. Like wow, pow, pow, like at the beginning of the pandemic to the when they say okay, maybe it's safe, so they opened it up. Mm, wow, and my good news, my mother's out of the hospital. She was had COVID for 6 or so days, and she's better than ever. Yay.
That's
Now
really good news, Hiro.
now it's my turn to get healthy. Well, I'm always trying to get healthy, trying to eat better. Mm, 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 trying to sleep better. Mm. So now I'm going to try some yoga. Mm.
What's the weather like there now?
Mm. It's been nice, not too cold, not too hot, and it hasn't been raining much, so that's kind of good. Sometimes you get lots of rain. Lately, it's been okay.
Well, for me in Central Florida, only hour and a half from you, Hiro, I think. But it's been cold. It was cold this morning, and the mornings
Yeah.
have been cold. And then they quickly, like today, quickly warmed up. The sun is out. It's glistening on the pool. It's beautiful out there today. But we also had several days of storm, rain, going on, and especially at night, which I think was good because Florida's waking up from the cold.
But will it wake up mentally?
I know. I know.
From what I
Wake
understand,
up and think clearly.
well, that's for us, Gerald. But I don't know how much intel it goes with that, where spring usually wakes up based on the birds. I guess a lot of the birds or certain types of birds. So this way it activates, and insects and all the other creatures can hear that it's time. It's kind of like a rooster waking up in the morning kind of ideal. So hopefully when we start hearing the different birds making their little, then we know that we're getting closer to spring. So it's a little cold here, Joel. I don't know where you are.
Summer.
It's cool. It's cooler here in Texas as well, but it's nice. There's no snow and no ice. It's just today. Yeah. But you don't know. I had no idea the weather was so changeable here in Texas. I just, how until you actually see something for yourself, you have these internal images of how things are, and then you actually go and contact them. And
is there mountains in Texas, Joel? I've been
sorry.
there. Is there a mountain in Texas?
West Texas.
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe part of Texas as they go towards Arizona and New Mexico.
Are you guys RVing it down there by any chance?
Nope.
Oh, you're just taking a plane back and forth, or are you taking like a rental car? You drive with the Ontario license plate?
Yeah,
Love it.
In Florida, you see Ontario license plates everywhere. I haven't seen another Ontario license plate since I've been in the Dallas area, but I've seen a few Florida ones. Not a lot, but a reasonable number.
I wonder if you can contact Jorge Hernandez, our fellow Wake Up and Think Clearly from Houston. He's in Houston.
Oh, is he? Yeah, I don't know if you have his email. We may go to Houston on our way to the Alamo if we go. We haven't decided yet because it's a fair trip.
He should be on. You could do the same thing you did with Don. With Don, was it? You contacted her
with Hiroshi,
and with Don. Well, you could get Jorge's email that way through Meetup. Maybe his face is there in one of the two, probably Central Florida Philosophers. Yeah, and then you could do what you did with Hiroshi, meet him face to face, and have him play you a game of Vinci, and then you could spread the gospel of Vinci to convert all of Houston.
Well, I'm still looking for the first Texan to play Vinci in person.
It could
So-
be Jorge, but you'll have to go to Houston.
Well, it could be anybody, but who it will be who it will be. Does that make sense? Wait a minute.
To be or not to be? That is the question.
Hey, Gerald, just interested just for a minute, if possible, because I don't have their email. If you don't mind, if you don't, Jorge and a bunch of the guys like Mike and Louise, if you don't mind sending my Zoom information, and when I'm doing it tomorrow, again, you're welcome to, if you want to come, and same with you, Joel.
Oh, okay. Let's promote Dominic's Zoom
No, I'm just gonna
meeting.
promote.
What
I'm just gonna promote
it's called
the ship yap. We're just gonna chit chat.
it's wake up and chit chat. Yip yap.
We're going to be talking about how to create printing machines in our basement so we can print all kinds of currency. And then you guys can just do whatever you want, how much you want. You just have to buy the ink. Hey, Joel, I have to tell you a story. Me and my wife, probably about 25 years, we decided to jump in our Honda Civic, and it was a hatchback. And we traveled across Canada, all the way down the coast of, California, right across to Texas. Took us like 6 months. We stopped at all the different rest areas, got to go through all the national park. It was enjoyable. That's why I'd asked if you had done the RV, because I remember we met all kinds of people that drove in more comfort in an RV or so.
Wow, that's awesome.
Florida, unfortunately, was the only place where, at the time anyway, you really couldn't park anywhere overnight. You know what I mean? The police would always pull you over, see your license plate, sorry, son, you can't park here overnight. Okay, where can I park? Well, you're gonna have to get a hotel or motel or whatever. But meanwhile, in California, you could park anywhere. Texas, you could park anywhere. A lot of times you could park at Walmart. You know, so it was enjoyable.
I noticed a lot of Walmarts have RVs in their parking lots sometimes. When we crossed over towards Chicago in the Sioux, we went into Walmart and I saw a bunch of RVs parked there.
Yep. Yeah, because they get the map and they can go throughout all of the states, and a lot of them are there still are 24 hours. You go in there and you read a book, clean up a little bit, do a little shopping. Yeah, meet all kinds of characters there.
Those were the days.
I was younger. My body was able to do it. You know, I was able to even spend, I think, Clearwater. I spent 3 months in Clearwater once. I just stayed at a bunch of hotels, and I just did nothing more than skateboarding and roller skate down in Clearwater Beach. It's just something to do.
Wow.
But, yeah. I call those my escape years.
Wow. And I've done no traveling. Maybe I should travel to the beach.
You travel in your head.
Maybe
Jarrell.
tomorrow I should go to Clearwater, not Clearwater, but before Clearwater, there's a Buddhist center in before Clearwater. There's Sever Hills and Wesley Chapel. In Wesley Chapel, they have a Buddhist center, and they're celebrating the construction of their meditation temple. So maybe I'll go visit them, because they have a Tibetan Buddhist master that lives there, and so maybe we'll celebrate with them. They're gonna have food and stuff, and
you can even go to the Scientologist there. You can
maybe
go
I could go take my guitar and then go to the Scientologist.
Yeah, you can go to the Scientologist at Clearwater. I think that's one of the major headquarters, if it's still there.
Yeah, I tried to go to a Scientology Zoom meeting the other day. I found one on Zoom, but the times were all screwed up and I never saw what it was, but I was curious. I didn't even they didn't even present it as Scientology. It seemed to be philosophy, but then when you read the details more closely, it was the
fine print
related thing.
It snuck up on you, Joel?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Did I tell you guys that before I found you guys, I ended up in one of those groups?
I heard you got converted, Don, and you're actually one of the headmasters at the Scientologies now.
Oh, you heard wrong, grasshopper.
No, I didn't. But you did share the story that you found out that you eventually figured out that that's what they were doing.
Well, yeah, that's what so they have started opening all
Oh, it was
these meetup groups.
Ekankar, wasn't it? Ekankar?
No, this is different. They have been starting meetup groups.
Mhm.
And they have been touching on all these topics that are like everybody's jumping in on it.
Really?
You would never have seen a room clear more quickly than the day that they had their first meeting, and it was supposed to be how to deal with relationships or whatever, and how to raise your vibration and all this sort of stuff. And so I don't know, 100 and something people showed up to that Zoom.
Wow.
And at some point, somebody asked, was an older man, and he said, are you guys members of Scientology or Scientologists? And the lady said, oh, yeah, yes, we are. He said, I'm sorry, I can't be any part of this. And he left. And oh, my God, we were down to like 5 people. I stayed.
You're that curious cat, Don. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to know why. What were you doing? Why couldn't you just say right away, "Hey, we're the Church of Scientology, and we're trying to convert you"? Just like, hey, say it. Why you gotta lie?
Well, I think, Don, what happens, I've done enough Zoom, meetups before anyway, and then they became more Zoom, where you go there and you find out it's Rosicrucians or Freemasons and all that, which is fine. I'm there to learn, right? But when you start hearing about are you going to recruit and all that, I felt like as though somebody's knocking on my front door wanting to know if I want to buy their vacuum. I said, it'd be nice if you told me in advance. Or the one I really don't enjoy at all is when you go there, and I've read I read it quite clearly. And then when you go there, and then because I don't like guided meditation, I'm like, okay, guys, if you guys knew you were going to do guided meditation, could you not have written it in the description? Because some people, like in this case, me, I don't prefer that. If I'm going to meditate, I'm going to meditate. I'm not going to be guided. But that's my view, where kind of like you're saying about the Scientology, how many people would have truly shown up if you knew it was Scientology, unless they're going to lay it out like, we're just going to teach what Scientology is, but we're not trying to recruit anybody. A lot of people don't want to be recruited. Even military, a lot of times they're forced to be recruited because there's an advantage. You're getting paid for it. You know what I mean? Like if somebody says, you want to join Scientology, but we pay you so much money a year, I say, well, I'll consider that.
So I'm trying to recruit for the science of waking up and thinking clearly.
Yep.
And it only costs $10,000 every so often.
So now, but Jaro, if we're going to do it, is it going to be like, do we have to wear all like Nike suits and like join like a cult?
You have to wear this shirt, a Beatles shirt.
And how much are you going to charge us for that? Because Joel's game's a little bit cheaper then. I want to know how much is it going to cost. Because I'll join Da Vinci.
Beatles shirt costs only $1,000. Yeah.
You mean fair? American or Canadian? Because Canadian, that'd be like $5,000.
No.
If not more, eh, Joel?
Wow.
What is that shirt, Hyro? I can't see it.
Look, there's the Beatles. I think this is John, and maybe this is Paul.
No, Paul's down at the bottom there. I think Paul's at the bottom there. I don't, maybe not. No, right.
Where did you find that?
Maybe that's George.
Probably a thrift store. I wouldn't be surprised. Probably find it at a thrift store.
George. There's George, I think. Maybe this is Ringo. I can't. I
think Jar was just showing all that so he can show his abs. I think that's what he's doing. 3 months. If I start showing you my guy, we'll compare 3 months or 4 months. Are you pregnant?
My
3 months.
He's ready to go.
I love him. I love the guy.
That was awesome. He was giving us a show.
Pyro, have you heard from Mike Taylor at all?
No, I haven't.
Hope Mike's okay. Hope he's okay.
I see him at the meetup at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. That's
Okay.
at
Okay.
Give
Plato's
him my
Cave,
regards.
Yep.
or Plato's Cave, or also known as Orlando Stoics. Yeah, you can go in them, and they are going to be talking about confirmation bias and things like that.
I'm
Oh,
Oh,
going
is
that's a
to
that
good
be at
subject.
that one tomorrow. You're going to be on that one, Hiro, tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll probably go to that one tomorrow.
Me too. I'm going to check it out.
Mm. Yes, they're very good.
how
You
long
can
is that one,
actually learn.
Jaro?
You can actually learn something there.
Oh,
Yeah.
What?
I thought
Are
we
you-
learned something here too today.
Yes, we
Oh
did.
yes, learned a little bit about compassion. We must be compassionate with ourselves.
Well, I've got to
Mm.
check out the humanists back in Toronto. So have a good week, everybody. Maybe I'll get to the Stoics tomorrow. It sounds like an interesting subject.
What's
Does
the topic?
Rami go there?
Now, I haven't seen him there either. He's kind of on sabbatical or
And
something.
what about who was the guy that was first here? The guy who works in a mortuary.
Luis.
Oh, Luis Del Pino.
Yeah, what's
Luis Del
happened?
Luis Del Pino,
What's happened to
as he
him?
used to say.
He does his own thing right
He
now, Joel.
he works at the U.S. cremations. They construct the cremation machine to cook us. Yes. What's happened to him? Yes. He says he's busy in the mornings. His wife puts him to do gardening or something. I don't know. Or he's saying he's always busy, a lot of work and stuff like that. He did start like a podcast in Spanish with a psychologist in Spain. So he did that for a few episodes. It's on YouTube in Spanish, like talking about
What's it called?
psychology. Meta-mentor.
Meta mentor. Okay.
META. I think it's got a hyphen and mentor. And they talk psychology and yes, trauma and things like that. Yes, it's in Spanish. Maybe you can have it translated or something.
Okay, guys, stay safe. Good to see you or hear from you. And
Good to
I'll
see
keep
you,
my eye
Joel.
out at the recycling store for a Beatles t-shirt so I can join the club.
All right.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Yeah.
You
Thank
too,
you,
Don.
Don.
Bye.
This is
Bye,
the
Joel.
dawning of the age of Aquarius.
It is. And
Look
it's a
at that.
dawning of a new day.
Always.
All right. Bye, guys.
Ciao, Don.
Bye.
Same with
Bye,
you, Jaro.
Dominic.
Enjoy yourself. Have an enjoyable time at yoga.
Oh, it's
And-
starting in a half an hour. I better hurry.
And like I said, if you remember, whether it's Mike or whatever, to mention tomorrow. I don't know what time your the other one finishes, but I'll open up at 10 if you guys are there. If not, no, I'll be there.
Mm,
Ciao, my
okay.
friend.
I took a snapshot of the number.
Thank you, my friend. Have a good one, okay, Jaro?
Okay. Bye.